What's up, everyone, and welcome to a very spooky edition of GameFace, episode 364 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield.
Yeah, it's the spookiest b-boy I ever saw.
I'm Shane Satterfield, your humble host for the next couple hours of spooky game discussion. Alongside me to do that is Matthew Keil.
Yeah,
What's up?
everything's terrifyingly horrible today. They put out an HD collection and it wasn't HD.
How are you doing, everybody? Welcome to GameFace. Today is Halloween. Hopefully you guys celebrate and are enjoying the day. And hopefully you guys have some fun plans for tonight. If you have kids, I hope you're taking them out to do some trick-or-treating. Matt, what's your favorite candy?
Butterfinger.
Butterfinger.
Yeah.
I guess I like anything with chocolate and caramel.
Yeah, those are, I mean, Twix is good.
Twix, Milk Duds.
I like Reese's peanut butter stuff, but that would kill you, so.
Yeah. You know what I've recently been reminded of that I forgot that I really liked is a candy bar called 100 Grand.
Oh, yeah, I have some of those down in the
Oh, you
bowl.
do?
Yeah.
Just chocolate,
Very
caramel,
chewy.
and Rice Krispies.
Yep.
And I had completely forgotten that brand even existed.
No, those are good.
And then the wife brought them home, and she's like, do you remember these? And I was like, yeah I remember that. I love them.
Yeah,
So
those are good.
We've had a bowl of those sitting by our front door for a while. I like those. I like Kit Kats.
Kit
What
Kats are
else?
solid.
What about candy, like not chocolate stuff? What's your favorite candy?
I'm not a huge fan of non-chocolate candy.
Yeah, me either.
I guess Jolly Ranchers.
Jolly Ranchers? You like
good.
hard candy?
Yeah, that would probably be it. Like I don't like the just sugar candy stuff.
Yeah, where it's just basically hard sugar.
like
that you...
Smarties or Jelly. I guess Jelly Bellies if you get the right flavors.
Yeah.
Flavor is more important to me than sweet in that regard. So
I like Spree. I like Sweet Tarts. I like Nerds.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I like candy-wise?
Yeah, I was never
Skittles, I'm okay on.
Skittles are all right. I prefer M&Ms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the worst candy? What's your least favorite candy?
Oh, Mounds.
Man,
I'm enjoying like coconut. Like absolutely
coconut, too.
Fuck that.
I hate licorice.
Yeah, I also hate licorice.
Twizzlers, any of that stuff.
No,
I hate
don't
that.
Like that. I don't like the taste. I don't like the texture. I don't like any of that. Yeah.
Necco wafers, do you remember those?
Oh, vaguely.
They're these weird packs of like really thin wafers that you like slide. They're like they've been around since like the 40s. Like grandparents always ate them.
Yeah, I vaguely remember. Yeah, didn't hit.
Yeah. But yeah, I hate licorice. Most people like Twizzlers. I can't stand it. It doesn't matter what the flavor of the licorice is, whether it's licorice flavored or cherry flavor. I just don't like the consistency.
What else? I love what is it? Like I like British candy a lot because they have better chocolate. So Cadbury cream eggs, which obviously
those are good.
Obviously
Easter
not
time.
Yeah, obviously not Halloween candy. But
Yep.
The originals, they changed the formula in America and they suck now and they're smaller. But if you can get an actual UK one, still one of the best things. What is the damn Violet Crumble? I love
Never heard of
those.
that.
That is a British candy bar that is it has honeycomb in it.
Oh,
it's like
that sounds
it's got
good.
chocolate wrapped honeycomb. It's really good.
That sounds really good. Missed out on that one when I was over in Europe. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys. Let's see. Faradol says Necco wafers were discontinued. So I'm not the only one who thinks they're absolutely disgusting.
Well, good.
That's good to hear. Clay UK Garage 1988. Never liked Bounty, to be honest. Like Lion and Mars. What's Bounty?
Bounty is like Mounds.
Oh, okay.
I think it might actually be what Mounds is called in Britain.
Oh, okay. Surf Spider, thank you for Twitch Prime. Silk Snake says cream eggs are here all year in Europe, so you don't have to wait till Easter if you're overseas. But here in America, they only come around pretty much once per year, unfortunately. So we got to wait until Easter time to actually get them. Saltwater Taffy Vortex Complex says C-Note like Skittles like me. AJ the Legend Watson says now and later. They're kind of like the...
Oh, yeah, chewy. Like
They stick to your teeth and pull
they're not quite
pull
chewable.
your fillings out.
No, those are good. I like those.
Fifth Avenue. AJ
Fifth
likes
Avenue's
that one.
good.
Yeah.
Whatchamacallits. I like whatchamacallits. When I was young, I liked whatchamacallits and Caramello.
Oh, the caramellos are good. Yep. Lestevid, thank you for gifting all the tier 1 subs. I think I saw somebody else Also, Sound Wizard, thank you for all the tier 1 subs. This is why you should show up in person for GameFace at twitch.tv/SIFTD Games, because you'll always get a free sub from one of our generous. Rock and Roll 458, thank you for Twitch Prime. Mersh, thank you for Twitch Prime. Sound Wizard, thank you for Twitch Prime. What else we got? Did you guys hear the warm-up music was the Misfits today in honor of Halloween? Little horror business going on there. Pain of Demise, thank you for Twitch Prime. Some people got my costume, Run DMC, that's absolutely right. I wanted to get like a big fake necklace to wear, but I just ran out of time, unfortunately. Pain of Demise says Hershey cookies and cream.
Oh, yeah,
that's not
good.
Too bad.
They're usually is like a Halloween pack of like the the fun size like things that has like Halloween versions of all the different Hershey things, and like you get the Reese's Bats and you get the green Kit Kats and stuff, but the Hershey's like they have cookies and cream Hershey's, but they're shaped like fangs. And I couldn't find those this year.
Interesting.
I was disappointed.
That's a shame. We got a couple other people getting here. Sour Patch Kids from Not Cirque.
I like the Kit Kats with weird flavors from other countries. I ordered
from Japan. There's all kinds of different flavors.
Actually, the best flavors of Kit Kat are from India.
Really?
I ordered a bunch from India earlier this year. I got butterscotch.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Caramel apple. A bunch of I still have one of the butterscotch ones. And then I got Indian Snickers, which doesn't do you any good. But
nope.
But it had
one thing I can't eat.
It had lime, like citrus lime, and berry whip.
Oh wow!
Which is interesting. This is a nice American difference thing. As an American, when I see the berry whip or the lime thing, I was expecting to bite into the Snickers and see bright green and bright red.
Yeah.
But it just looks like a normal Snickers.
Oh, really?
They've just got different flavoring there, because only in America would you pile all the artificial coloring in there just because people expect it to look like a goddamn cartoon.
Right. Yep.
So I was like, yeah, that's true. It doesn't need to. You don't need to have red dye number 5 in order for it to taste like a berry.
Yep. Oreos also, there's tons of crazy flavors of those if you look around. But anyway, hope you guys are excited for Halloween. Appropriately, the marquee game in today's show is a horror game, and we're going to talk about Alan Wake 2 later on in the show. But before we get going into our housekeeping, Matt, you have a new co-host there with us, right, today?
Yes, Grimlock showed up yesterday. This is by the same company, RoboSen, that did the automated Prime. And he is a slightly more advanced model.
He's way more advanced.
Meet Grimlock stronger. Meet Grimlock must bleed.
Hey, Grimlock.
Yes, we go.
Transform.
So freaking sweet.
It's extinction time.
It's so freaking awesome.
Hey, Grimlock.
Yes, we go.
Megatron.
You Megatron tricked us. Make us like good leader Optimus Prime. Prime risked own life to save us. That's Megatron.
It helps if he has his sword in his hand.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, Grimlock. Hey, Grimlock.
Yes, we go.
Autobots.
We help. Always save Autobot High.
Now get him to transform again. I love seeing him click his heels together.
Hey, Grimlock.
Yes, we go.
Transform. Transform.
I love that.
My favorite part is, for some reason, the way the legs like condense up into the tail. There's something very satisfying about
It's
that.
freaking sweet. Are you willing to share how much you paid for that with the people?
He was $1,600.
Ouch.
Which the most expensive Transformers thing I have ever bought, maybe by a large margin. And normally, if you showed me a $1,600 Transformer, I'd just say fuck you. But it's Grimlock.
But it's Grimlock, the exception to all rules.
I haven't gotten there. They've made a couple. They made a Bumblebee and a Movie Prime that I didn't get. Partly because they're expensive, partly because they don't transform.
Mm-hmm.
But you put a transforming Grimlock like that in front of me, yeah. Like,
Done deal.
I couldn't say no to that. So.
Pretty sweet.
That's my Christmas present to myself, I guess.
A little early.
Yeah, but
Whatever.
You pre-order it or you get it.
Yeah, you don't get it. Yep.
Yeah, this went up like earlier this year, so.
Yeah, people were guessing it's like around $2,000, but
Yeah,
it's actually a little cheaper than that.
Well, that's the discounted price when you get the early bird on the Hasbro store. If you buy it like at normal retail, it will be about $2,000.
Yeah.
Which is a lot because like the Prime was $800, I think. So there's a lot more happening in this one. Part of it because both modes have to walk around and animate, whereas the truck is a little easier.
It just rolls. Yeah. It makes it a lot easier. Axel F 1986, thank you for Twitch Prime. People just freaking out. Holy crap! it's pretty awesome.
But I do think he is still available on HasbroPulse.com. If for some reason you want to spend that on this, I mean, I think it's pretty great.
Yep. Yagix, thank you for Twitch Prime. People asking us where we get our out-of-country candy in the USA. You just get it at candy stores.
A lot of candy stores exist. There's like websites like Galaxy Sweets and stuff you can order. I think that's where I got the Indian Kit Kats. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of import places. There's places that are just like pure like.
There's Japanese grocery stores here.
Grocery stores.
Where you can get all the crazy Kit Kats.
There's a place up in Echo Park called Galco's Soda Stop, which has sodas from around the world, but also has a lot of candy from around the world. It's around.
Yep.
There used to be the British stuff I know because down the street from where I grew up, there was a British store, like a store that was just sold British import stuff, and it was all, but it wasn't just candy. It was foods and little household things that were like specific. If you wanted like an electric kettle, which we don't really have or didn't have then, like, which is something that I find shocks British people more than anything else. It's like you don't have electric kettles? Like, no, we just boil it. It takes so long. And then like the biggest horror was one of the British students I knew in college, and she had an electric kettle, and it was great because it heated up immediately. And it turned out, I don't know how long this was going on, but it turned out one of her roommates was using it to boil eggs in, which affected the taste of the tea.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. That's funny.
Now, to be fair, electric kettles are amazing for boiling eggs in.
Yeah.
It works great. But you have to not use it for tea.
Yeah, you can't cross the streams
there.
there.
You can't do that. Yeah, cross the street out. Oh, he's been idle too long. He's going to go to sleep.
He snores when he goes to sleep. That's great.
Yeah, I did dress as a Ghostbuster for Halloween this year, and I thought about wearing it, but like it doesn't really make a lot of sense
without the pack.
Down.
It's hard to see.
You just see a tan jumpsuit with my name tag on it. So
Yep.
Hey Grimlock.
Yes, we go.
Shut down.
Goodbye, friends. Goodbye.
Pretty freaking sweet. There you go. That's Grimlock. What company is that made by again?
Robocen.
Robocen? S-E-N?
S-E-N.
Yeah. And if you remember, we also brought on...
It's a Chinese robotics company.
Yeah, we brought on Optimus Prime, which he got... How long ago was that now? 2 years?
That was a couple years ago.
Yeah. So he has... That's the whole collection, right? Except for one, maybe?
I don't have two of them. I don't have the Bumblebee, and I don't have the Bumblebee Movie Prime. Largely because they don't transform, and that's a big one. If you don't transform, you don't get in the collection. That's a rule. And for that amount of money, they should transform. And I don't particularly love those characters. Optimus Prime and Grimlock are one thing. Some weird permutation of Optimus Prime and the kid-friendly character I never really cared about. Not going to spend hundreds of dollars on that.
You better keep him away from the LS Cream. Grimlock hammered.
Yeah, that would be a good episode.
It would be. So anyway, again, I hope you guys...
Christmas.
Yeah. I hope you guys are having a good Halloween. Hope you guys have something planned for tonight. If you have some kids, you're going to take them out, and hopefully you can get some candy, too, along with your kids. We have a great show planned for you guys today. We also have a ton of housekeeping. There's a bunch of little stories that happened this week. And we might as well just kick that off right now and get into it. Matt, the first story, smaller story we're going to discuss this week is that Microsoft and Xbox shared the financial results for its gaming arm. There's a word that they use to describe it. Is it called like? It's not hardware business. It's called interactive or anyway. It's one piece of their company that they basically pile all the Xbox stuff into. And so they delivered their financial report for the quarter. And one thing that we found out is that Xbox hardware sales are down year over year, like 7 or 8%. Does that surprise you at all, Matt?
No, I mean, it just seems like fluctuation.
Yeah. It seems like now they should be selling more because kind of all these plans that they've had are coming online. They're getting Bethesda's games into Game Pass. People know that Activision Blizzard was about to happen, all that kind of stuff. Are you?
Not really. I mean, 7% isn't the end of the world.
It's just that it's down instead of growing. When they fought through the supply chain issues and the
doesn't matter.
Production issues. Now they're also, by the way,
if it was up 7%, we wouldn't be like, oh my god, they're about to take over the game industry. Like, it doesn't. It's fluctuation. And you can't, with the inflation, with the amount of money that people have to spend right now, doesn't surprise me people aren't going for what is frankly third place contender for $500 damn dollars.
Yeah.
And especially if half of them or more than half of them are Series S, I would imagine most people that want one have that already.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there's much of a market for it right now. Like, I feel like, especially because it's been easier to get than the PS5 for quite a while. I didn't really expect much of a boost there. I just
am surprised to see it go down because to me the prospects for owning an Xbox are better now than they have been.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people have had, and you put a lot of emphasis on exclusives for Xbox, and I just don't think that's all that relevant. I don't think people think of exclusives in the mainstream, like, kind of casual realm. They don't know that. They don't think about that.
Yep.
They don't realize.
They're just like, does it have Call of Duty?
Yeah,
does
can
it
I
have
play Call of
Madden?
Duty? Can I play Assassin's Creed? Can I play all these all the third-party things that the system can play count for the average consumer. So it's like, as long as it can play that, they'll go ahead and get it and wait for the good shit.
Do you think Microsoft anticipated year-over-year drop in hardware sales?
I don't think Microsoft particularly cares.
It doesn't seem like it does, really.
It's so I mean, it might eventually, but it's so focused on Game Pass right now. It doesn't really seem to care. I would much rather you get a Game Pass subscription on PC than buy a Series X at this point. Because the profit margin on the Game Pass is much higher than on the hardware. So.
Although at this point, they're probably starting to make money on their hardware.
I don't know. The cost of production hasn't really gone down for any of those components.
Yeah, because as we talked about before, they're proprietary. Yeah. So they're not just off-the-shelf parts in a lot of cases for these new consoles. So, as Pactor has said a couple times recently, counting on a price drop coming for these consoles is kind of a fool's errand anymore.
I don't think there ever will be one. Like, even the replacement PS5 isn't dropping the price of the standard PS5. They're just going to sell them until they go away.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't think you're going to see price drops on these things until the generation's over, if then. Mm-hmm. I mean, even then, you can see things like with like the Wii U. The Wii U never got a lot of big, deep discounts after it was discontinued because Nintendo recalled all of it.
Right. Yeah.
So, which is good for the retailers because it's just like, basically it was like you can return them and get a better, because they wanted people to be willing to carry the Switch, is what you're trying to build trust with the retailers so that they don't refuse to carry your next product.
For sure.
Which
may not matter.
No.
At this point. Although
now they wouldn't have to do that, but I think that was a make good because of the performance of the Wii U.
Yeah.
But in exchange, we didn't get a chance to get $40 Wii U's on super red tag clearance or something.
I'll say this,
which did happen to the Dreamcast. There have been failed systems that happened with, but Nintendo had a future, so they had to think about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think you're going to see much of that with any of this, and I can't imagine you're going to have trouble moving PlayStation 5s and even Xbox Series X's once that's over, because it's even discounted by $50 is a pretty good deal on these things.
Yeah,
you're never going to see these price drops for hundreds of dollars.
You just get free games now. They're like, hey, here's The Last of Us with the console for free.
Here's 6 months of Game Pass free.
Here's Starfield.
Yeah.
That might actually move some hardware.
That might, yeah.
Yeah. I was just at a mall on Friday. Yes, they actually still exist, and they still exist in Los Angeles. There are still malls here. Mm-hmm. And we went out to dinner on Friday night, and we had to walk through the Best Buy to get to the restaurant that we were going to. And the Best Buy that I walked through was loaded with PlayStation 5s and Xbox Series consoles. Tons of them. It was the first time I've seen more than one PlayStation 5 on a store shelf ever since it launched. They had dozens of them. So
good.
it does appear that they only had maybe 5 or 6 Xbox Series X consoles.
That won't last though. So if you're looking for that, go. You're getting someone a PlayStation 5 for Christmas. Go now.
It's still not that easy, which is kind of crazy when you really think about it.
Because the next couple weeks, the early bird people are going to be like, oh, it's time to start doing Christmas shopping. But most people are on Thanksgiving, like the end of November, are going to be like, oh, I got to do that now, and then you're screwed.
Yeah, I don't think Xbox wanted to see this. I don't think this is good news for Xbox or something that maybe it expected.
But I also don't think it's particularly bad
because
news.
of their business model that they're trying to attain at this point. I think if this were PlayStation 5 hardware sales down 7% year over year, that would be a big red flag.
I don't know about that. I mean, they've sold so many of them.
I mean, they're at, what, 45 million?
Yeah, they're going to start dropping at some point.
I mean, they still got another 100 million to go.
Yeah, but this is a much higher price point than anything they've done before, other than the PS3. Like, you're going to plateau at some point, and you're going to have ups and downs from that plateau. And the next, as you've noted, if Sony was, I'd be surprised if that happened to Sony this quarter because of Spider-Man.
Right.
But what do they do in Q1? But
what did they do this last Q1?
You might see a drop there just because there's no reason to go run out and pick up the system. But I don't think that'll happen. I think the perception of the PS5 is that it's rare, and that will persist for at least another year.
Probably.
Like until people start having the experience you just had every time they walk through a big box store. Like I don't think that's going to be an issue for them.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if I went back to that Best Buy now and they're all gone.
Could be
those PS5s. Yeah. So anyway. Sales not looking great for Xbox, but it's not really a big concern of Xbox's anymore. But I did find it a little surprising because I really thought it might gain momentum with kind of all these plans finally coming to fruition.
It could also be a thing where, like, last year it was the only one regularly available, so it was selling better, and now you can get a PS5, and you're going to pick between the two of them.
Yep.
People mostly seem to pick a PS5. So
yeah, that's another good point, for sure. So anyway, maybe a little bit of reason for concern for Xbox, but we're not setting up the red flags.
I mean, they're already in last place. They're going
to stay there.
Yeah, I wouldn't start panicking until like Hellblade 2 turns out to suck.
Yeah, that would be a
like
cause for
that's
alarm.
the thing is like you have your opinion on Starfield, but one way or the other. But like it's sold 10 million goddamn copies.
It's going to end up selling like 20,
and it's still the 8th most played game on Xbox even now, 2 months later. And it's like that's for a single player RPG. That's real good.
It
like
is.
So people are still absorbed by it. Which is good because there's nothing else to be absorbed by on that platform other than third-party stuff. Yeah. I noticed we didn't get a lot of player-based updates for Forza.
No.
I haven't even heard Forza mentioned in a while.
Shocker. I mean, if you watched our review of it, you understand why.
But I think you're going to need to so Starfield sort of did what it needed to do. It at least didn't. I forgot the name of it. What was the stupid vampire thing?
Redfall.
Redfall. It didn't Redfall.
It didn't pull a Redfall. Yeah.
But now you got to follow up. Like, Xbox basically needs like 3 pristine shots in a row. Like Hellblade 2 needs to be great. Whatever comes out after Hellblade 2, because we don't really know. Avowed or whatever needs to be great. Like you need to establish a pattern of everything Xbox has in.
They need one a quarter at least.
Yeah,
I agree.
But
they need a big game every month. I don't even think Starfield every quarter.
I don't think they even need that. I think they need consistency in terms of quality much more than quantity.
Where people just know that they can rely
on it. Yeah, you can trust it. Like that used because the 360 used to have that.
It did.
Like Xbox is like first party stuff. You used to be able to depend on.
Count on it. Yeah. And then it settled into that groove where we could count on it a little bit too much.
Right. So yeah, I think consistency is going to be key. The Eye of Sauron is on Hellblade now.
Yeah.
And whatever they have in the pipeline after that, I don't remember. We know that already. I don't remember what the.
Yep. Next up in housekeeping, this is even a way bigger surprise than Xbox hardware sales being down year over year, and that is that the Five Nights at Freddy's movie did $130 million its opening weekend. Matt, as the film guy, how do you feel about this?
I mean, it's an iconic franchise that an audience grew up with.
Yeah.
So yes, this makes a lot of sense.
I was surprised.
It's a terrible movie.
I thought it would do okay. I thought it would do 30, 50 million maybe.
I mean, the question was always, will the people who were 12 when this was hot and created the Twitch thing 10 years, will they come out to the theater?
Yeah.
Because you can't always depend on Gen Z to show up for things like that. But they did. And yes, the movie sucks. But, like, so does Five Nights at Freddy. Like, it's an...
It does.
As even the fans of Five Nights at Freddy's have pointed out, this movie is exactly what a movie version of this game... the game is schlock.
Yeah.
And the movie is also schlock. It's like, they nailed it. Like, frankly... this is what's called, when you talk about a critic-proof movie, that's what it is.
It didn't matter what the reviews were.
Because
what is its Metacritic average?
It's essentially, it's something, I don't remember. The Rotten Tomatoes is something like 30-something% critics.
Sounds about right.
30-something% critics and 82% audience.
Wow.
I mean, the audience score doesn't matter on any of that stuff because you just vote over and over again.
The kids pile in there. And
it's being positively review bombed, basically. But the box office doesn't lie.
Yeah.
You can rely on the box office more for audience sentiment than anything else. It's like, well, you can downvote The Last Jedi to 10% as much as you want, but it still made $1 billion.
Yeah. You
don't get to that without a lot of repeat business.
Yeah.
And the same with Five Nights at Freddy's. You don't get $150 million without strong word of mouth and repeat business even over that first weekend. So, it's like Mortal Kombat. It's like that first movie is not high art, but it is exactly what a Mortal Kombat movie should be, especially in 1995.
Yeah.
So I think you have a similar situation here where some people have also made a parallel to the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie, which was a surprise hit because, but I would argue that the the 1990 Ninja Turtles movie is actually a pretty good film, like certainly for what it is.
Yeah.
And the source material is actually a lot better.
It is still crazy to me that a really awful movie can make $130 million. I mean, that shows you the power of some of the gaming brands.
Oh, it happens. Yeah, it happens. It happens more often than you think. I mean,
isn't it like the second biggest opening of the year or something?
No, definitely Oppenheimer, and it'd probably be in the top 5, though. I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, man.
It hasn't been a very strong year.
It hasn't.
The Marvels is about to crash and burn.
Really, you think so?
Ticket pre-sales for the Marvels is 72% below Ant-Man Quantumania.
Below Ant-Man?
I mean, Ant-Man Quantumania was pretty well sold out, but like people are not flocking to the Marvel stuff anymore. I
noticed the marketing for that film. They're trying to say, "Here comes the new MCU." They're like trying to get the people hooked back into it.
Yeah, but everybody's been waiting for that for like the last 3 movies, and it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So I think there's no momentum on that. Nobody trusts them to actually start delivering the overall story again.
Mm-hmm. It used to be a license to print money.
Yeah, well, because they were in the third act of a long story that was starting to obviously come to a climax, and people just wanted more and more Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And now the problem with the current Marvel stuff is like in the early phase Marvel stuff, who are the main characters of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
The X-Men generally.
Well, no, Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh.
In those early movies, the Thanos saga, who are the main characters?
Like
Iron Man, and Captain America.
Yeah,
like that's very clear from very early on.
Yeah, well, they got their own films. So.
A lot of people got their own films. Thor got his own film. Hulk got his own film.
That's true, actually.
But when you watch the Avengers movie, it's very clear. Okay, the overall story of this series
follows those 2 characters,
Iron Man and Captain America. Mm-hmm. Who are the main characters of the current MCU?
Yeah.
No one knows.
Yeah.
And I do think that originally, I think the plan was to have the core characters be Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Captain Marvel, but you ran into the problem of Sony started pulling weird shit with Spider-Man, so they can't rely on Spider-Man continuing to be there if Sony decides to do their nonsense. Chadwick Boseman died, which is probably the biggest blow to the MCU, period.
Because Black Panther was set, I think, to be the next Iron Man, the next,
and the mentor, and I mean, like the connective tissue. He's like, if you had him there, if you still had that character who was such a big deal in the previous big story, kind of anchoring the whole thing, it would be a completely different situation now.
Yeah.
And instead, they've tried to do that with Doctor Strange, and he just doesn't really have that kind of pull.
He was always a bit character in Marvel.
I mean, he's definitely more popular than he's been since the 60s.
He was more popular recently than he ever was back in the day.
Well, in the 60s, he was a big counterculture thing.
Yeah.
The Steve Ditko, he used to be on every blacklight poster in every stoner's dorm in the late 60s. Like, he was actually a really big deal back then. We don't hear about it anymore because it was a very quick moment.
Right.
But like, yeah, he's more popular than he's been since we've been alive.
Yeah,
for sure. And Captain Marvel was, but like Brie Larson has been reluctant to really push too hard on these things because she gets so much hate and so many death threats. So she sort of kind of wants. I think she wants out of it.
I don't blame her.
And I think that's why this is the Marvels and not Captain Marvel. The Marvel family or whatever. Because like
I don't think people care about that whole thing.
Well, they care about Captain Marvel because that movie made $1 billion.
Did it really?
It did.
Wow.
Captain Marvel made $1.1 billion.
I am shocked to hear that.
It was a big deal.
Wow. I didn't realize
this
that at
is
all.
not going to do that.
No.
But you notice they call it the Marvels and not Captain Marvel because that indicates to me that they don't know if Brie Larson's going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
Because her contract's got to be getting close.
Well, all I can say is that film should earn more money than Five Nights at Freddy's. And it's not gonna.
It probably won't.
It's crazy. So, I don't know. We don't have any Five Nights at Freddy's fans on Sifted, like, at all.
Well, yeah, because we're all too old.
Yeah. One thing I did notice, I read one review for it, and they said that they were shocked that there weren't a lot of jump scares in the movie. They really thought the whole movie was just going to be one jump scare, because that's what the game is.
Right.
But they said no, that they actually had restraint in making the film, and it's not just cheap, like, jump scares. I don't know. I'll still never see it, probably. Maybe when it's free on HBO or on Amazon or something, I'll check it out. But
Yeah, I can't imagine ever.
even then, it would be hard for me to watch it.
I can't imagine ever wanting to spend a finite lifespan on that.
Me
But
either. Yep.
I feel the same way about the games. So
Yeah, there you go.
I played the first one a little bit to see what all the fuss was about, and I don't understand what all the fuss was about.
Don't either.
It's like, yeah, this is basically...
It's a streamer game.
It's but it's
You want to watch people go, oh.
It's basically like a dumb version of Night Trap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
That's a good way to put it.
watching a bunch of cameras and...
No, you're right. Yep, it's very accurate. Another smaller story from this week. We just now have uncovered a patent from Nintendo that it actually applied for almost a year ago, back in November 2022, but for some reason, it's just now surfaced for a brand new clamshell designed piece of hardware. Here it is. What do you make of this, Matt?
I make a hat, a brooch, pterodactyl. I mean, it looks like a stripped down DS.
Do you think it's something that one thing I saw on Sifted that somebody guessed was that it looks like something that attaches to an existing Switch to make it a dual-screened system.
Could be.
But I don't know where you would attach anything to the Switch. Like, you need a serial port or something.
You wouldn't.
there.
You'd attach it to the next Switch.
Right. So you think this may be something for the next Switch that would have the serial port, maybe?
That would be my guess. They really want to get back to the DS thing, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, it maybe could even be something... Well, there is a screen there. But it may also have maybe like an extra battery in there to extend the battery life.
I mean, I'm interested in the idea that if you're carrying it around, it gives you a protective cover.
Right.
If it could
the
close.
clamshell design that they abandoned with the Switch.
Yeah, that was the best thing about the DS was you could close it up, put it in your pocket, and not worry about it.
Yeah, because here's sort of the folded view of it. Which it just makes it look like one of the later 3DS models, really.
It also looks like it has a screen on the top.
It does,
So
which is kind of interesting.
So you can play it normal.
That's a good point, actually, Matt. That it has the screen on the top.
Like, I can't tell if that's a screen or just like a design.
Right. I mean, I think it's probably a screen.
I don't know. I mean, whatever
210 is, yeah. I should have looked in the patent and got like the appropriate designations for what all these numbers are. But to your point, it does appear to close up like a clamshell.
Yeah. Also, I will say the one thing leaked that showed or not leaked, but they found in Mario Wonder's code like buttons for with different colors, and it's not Switch buttons. But it's all like the primary
color
colors.
coded, like the Super Nintendo.
I'm saying Super Nintendo Switch, because the Super Nintendo, especially in Japan, as the Super Famicom, leaned hard in the colored. But that was the logo in Japan.
It was
the colors, the
colored
four colored buttons.
Yeah.
So I think Super Nintendo Switch. Here we go.
Okay,
that's my prediction.
I could understand that. And again, keep in mind, people, that these patents pop up all the time, and we always show you guys these things on GameFace, and we always say when we show them to you that, like, this may never come to pass. This is just something Nintendo came up with that it wants to protect in case someone else comes up with it, the same idea, or tries to steal the idea. Now Nintendo's protected just in case. This could just be nothing, but it could be Switch 2.
Black Sierra says 210 is screen inside and outside.
So there's an outside screen.
There's an outside screen.
Let's go back to that other image here. That's an interesting idea. having a screen on the outside. Would it be a touchscreen? You could only play touchscreen, like mobile games there, maybe?
No, I would think that would be how you play normal Switch games. And then you open it up to play DS-style Switch games.
Interesting. Well, it's certainly food for thought. And with Nintendo's patents, there's always more than meets the eye, much like the Transformers. You may think it's for one thing, but then it's for another. Now, remember, Matt, the patent that we came across right before the Switch was announced that had, like, it was shaped like a football, and it had the analog sticks coming out of the screen. Remember that?
Yeah.
And that now obviously never happened.
Yeah, that was like, what was that a PlayStation controller?
No, it was a Nintendo thing. And people actually made mock-ups with 3D printers to try to fool people, and like it was a whole thing before they unveiled what the Switch really was. And obviously that patent never came to pass. It just ended up being something Nintendo was tossing around, and it just, again, wanted to just protect it in case somebody else tried to do it. So that could be all this is. There's no way to know yet. Any guesses on when we will finally see next Nintendo hardware?
Probably early next year.
Yeah, that's my guess. Around March time frame, something like that.
People are saying like Game Awards, but I really don't think they're going to.
I don't either.
I don't think they're going to give Jeff that.
That would be a huge get for Jeff Keighley, man, to unveil Switch 2 on his show. Woo! That's some big stuff. So I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen. Unfortunately,
like, good for him if he manages to pull that off, but I don't think so.
I would be shocked if Nintendo made that decision.
Yeah, they want that under their control.
I'll also say
maybe there'll be an interview with Bowser where he says something like, "And you're gonna see something new soon."
I will also say that
at most, I think they will announce the date of the direct in which we will see the Switch 2 for the first time.
I was just in contact a few days ago with one of my contacts at Nintendo, and we're buddies. We're not just like work associates or whatever. And we were talking about how long it had been since we've seen each other because of COVID and no E3 and all that kind of stuff. And I asked when we might see each other again, and the person did not bring up the Game Awards, which would lead me to believe that there's not something gigantic going on at the Game Awards.
I think in general that's probably true.
Just anecdotal. And okay. But anyway, I'm just telling you what I heard. But again, all like anecdotal.
If you're excited for more footage of the Elden Ring expansion, it'll be a festival. But otherwise, and to see Miyazaki give away the Game Award. Actually, they shouldn't get Miyazaki to give away the Game of the Year award. They should get that kid.
No, right? Yeah.
That kid should just wander up and give the Game of the Year award to Bill Clinton.
Black Sierra says 2 screens equals Switch 2 would be appropriate wordplay. Fair enough. Yep. Pretty clever.
You can switch between 2 screens and 1 screen. Like it has all the ingredients.
All the things you need. Yep. So we'll see how it goes. But again, don't pin your hopes on something like this. But
1 screen, technically 3 screens. That's super.
Yeah. It would have 3 screens.
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 on the outside, 2 on the inside.
So many things to break.
Yeah, exactly. If you have kids. Yeah.
That Joy-Con, getting 2 working Joy-Cons was unusual.
Yeah.
Try finding 3 Switch 2 screens with no dead pixels.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, the plot thickens on the Switch 2 or Super Nintendo Switch or whatever they end up calling it. Just little drips here and there that may add up to something or may add up to absolutely nothing. We'll see how it plays out. Next up, another Xbox story for housekeeping. It was announced or discovered this week that Xbox is banning the use of some unlicensed third-party controllers on its consoles. If you're using a third-party controller right now, and the funny part is, like, it feels like that market is gone.
I know. That feels like strategy guides to me. It's like, who does that?
Yeah, like, it doesn't feel like people buy third-party controllers anymore. Nacon makes, like, good ones, so sometimes if people don't want to shell out the extra money for the Xbox Elite controller, maybe they buy the Nacon for, like, $50 cheaper or whatever. That seems like the only market left for third-party controllers.
Yeah, but a lot of those are still licensed.
Right.
Anyway, like, I don't know what I mean. I assume they're talking about like controllers you'd buy at like the downtown market, like out of like some basket in a stall,
or in China.
Yeah,
places like that where there's a lot of bootlegging, a lot of piracy going on. Basically, what happens is if you're playing with an unlicensed third-party controller, a message pops up on your Xbox that says, "Hey, bro, you're not going to be able to use this for another 2 weeks. You got 2 weeks to get rid of this thing, and after that, we're cutting it off." I don't really blame Microsoft for this because you have companies that are trying to skirt their fees for making stuff for their platforms. How do you feel about that, Matt? Do you think companies should be able to produce stuff without having to license it for consoles?
I mean, having used some pretty terrible third-party controllers, like, I don't see a real problem with this.
I agree. It's all about, to me, it's all about consumer protection. It's about making sure that when something is licensed, Microsoft has tested it and make sure it works the way it's supposed to.
I remember my friend going through just a cavalcade of terrible cheap third-party controllers on the NES when we were
Mad
kids.
Cats for the N64.
He had the wireless ones that barely worked. He had the ones that what a busy day. He had the ones that had they were like longer handles and they had like vents with fans in them.
I had one of those
to cool your hands off so you don't sweat while you play. It's just like, I'm like,
why?
What is this?
It's like wipe hands on pants.
And it was like weird because it's like his mom wouldn't buy
a licensed
one because they were too expensive, but she'd pay like 3 times as much to get 3 cheap controllers that broke or sucked overall. And
if you go to a friend's house, it's like the lesser friend was the one who always got the third party controller.
There was one friend. That was like one place where it was like he had 3 official N64 controllers and 1 Mad Catz.
Yep.
And like whoever lost the match had to use the Mad Catz,
which is a self-defeating cycle.
Right, because now you're stuck with the Mad Cat. Like, you're not going to win GoldenEye doing that.
Nope. That's for sure. So anyway, I think we both agree that this is A-okay. And honestly, this is really like Microsoft looking out for you guys to make sure that you're not going to buy stuff that's going to break in a week or whatever, and you're not going to get ripped off. So to me, this is all about consumer protection.
And most of the stuff you'd have as a cheaper third-party alternative is already licensed.
Yeah.
Like
I think it's the big deal about nothing, really.
Yeah, if you can buy it at Walmart, it's licensed.
Yeah.
Like even if it's a third party.
Yeah, absolutely. Another smaller-ish story from this week is that we finally learned that the new Avatar game is in fact what we thought it was, which is Far Cry set in the Avatar universe. A bunch of previews went up yesterday for the game, hands-on previews, and first of all, they were pretty much glowing. I was really surprised by the tenor of all the previews that went up yesterday. Pretty much every single person was like, wow, this is way better than I thought it was going to be. I'm on board for that concept.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the shot in the arm the Far Cry formula needs.
Yes.
And I don't like
Sci-Fi.
I don't like Avatar very much, but like this seems like the best way to kind of explore that world.
Yeah.
On your own without having to deal with a Captain Power episode of a story the whole time.
And just a reminder, the plot of this is that you play as a Na'vi who has been raised away from the Na'vi, and the whole crux of the game's plot is you reintegrating with your people and having to learn stuff that other Na'vi your age learned, but you didn't because you weren't around your tribe or whatever. And that's the plot of the game: is you reassimilating in with the Na'vi. It may end up having a story better than the films, Matt. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about, but
aim high.
Yeah. But it's not that difficult, let's be honest. I mean, I feel like Avatar is a success not because it's a great story.
No.
I think it's really just a technical marvel of it all.
No, it's Avatar is a theme park ride.
Yeah.
It's that's the whole thing. That's why no one talks about it as a story or a film.
Yeah.
It's you got on it and you watched it in 3D and it looked amazing and you left the theater and forgot about it. Except unless you're one of the people who wanted to kill themselves because they could never go to Pandora. That was a phenomenon for a while.
I mean, all I got out of it was like Colonizer's bad, and I knew that already.
Yeah.
So, but this game, I'm pretty excited for this game now, and it's coming in December. It's going to be one of those games coming in late. It's not going to probably make it in time for the Game Awards, but we'll make it in time for our Game of the Year awards.
I mean, I like Far Cry, and I've been kind of meh on the last couple Far Cries, so I'm kind of hoping this reignites that.
Me too.
It looks different enough that I'm not going to feel like I'm doing the same old thing, and I assume it will not have the old kind of stale sense of humor that Far Cry has, and I won't spend half my time doing weird drug trip missions. I'm good with never having to do a hallucination mission ever again for anything, ever.
Well, that's interesting because we're going to be talking about Alan Wake 2 here in a couple minutes, so I'm excited to have that conversation with you.
But even Spider-Man 2 had that.
It did, yeah.
Like, I don't need to swing through Miles's weird memories. I don't need to go into the Mr. Negative's alternate universe of psychological torment.
Grayscale.
Like, it's just like no, just you don't need to do that. It's not a compelling way to present internal trauma.
It's a plot tactic that we'll be talking about here shortly when we talk about Alan Wake 2. Also, some smaller news from this week. We learned that From Software is hiring en masse.
Somebody has to.
Are you surprised to hear this?
Not in the wake of Elden Ring blowing up and needing to obviously put more content out. I imagine they want people to continue working on DLC for Elden Ring, but also start working on whatever the next thing is.
Do you think this is good?
Probably.
Yeah? Does it not make you nervous when you have kind of a boutique developer that's really good at making one kind of thing, trying to staff up and become sort of this video game machine?
No. Not until it happens.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to think one way or the other on it yet. Like, we'll see how Miyazaki has been able to keep all that stuff more or less under control.
But they've put out like one game every 3 or 4 years, other than this last 12 months when they put out two in kind of a 12-month span.
Which were both pretty good.
And both were pretty good. But they're staffing up. It looks like they're going to try to juggle like 3 or 4 games at a time.
Yeah, well.
Makes me. I mean, look, I'm not the world's biggest From Software fan. I did enjoy Elden Ring way more than its other games. But just as an outsider who's kind of impartial, that does throw up a couple red flags to me.
I don't really think so.
No?
It's like, and even if it does, they're going to put more emphasis on Elden Ring and the things people sell, the things that sell and people care about. If they're putting out mediocre B-listers on the side, who cares?
Yeah.
Because there's only so much From stuff you can play.
I wonder if they are doing this too to maybe have other companies pay them to make games. Like maybe a Bloodborne 2 might be born,
somewhat, and there's
born
a risk,
out of something
there's a
like
risk
this.
of falling into the Platinum trap with that.
Right.
But also,
that's what I'm getting at. Is like I look at what happened with Platinum, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen here with From Software.
Here's the thing: From Software can do more than one thing, and Platinum can't. Platinum had a kind of decent combat system. That's it.
Yeah.
They never made anything compelling in any of those games.
Narratively,
otherwise.
you're right. Yeah.
The narrative stuff all came from Nier, and all came from specific directors and specific writers. It was not part of the Platinum DNA. So I think From used to churn out way more games, and they were also
that was when making games was a lot more simple, though.
Yeah.
But maybe we get like
a lot of the staffing up might also just be to be able to get Elden Ring 2 out in less than 6 years.
That's a good point, actually. That's true.
They may not be working on completely different projects. It might just be like, we need this many people to get this shit done.
That was in the report, is that they do want to work on multiple games going forward.
Right, but like they are working on multiple games.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about it. And even if they crash and burn, I got what I want.
We've already got some pretty good stuff out of it. I don't see a crash and burn happening. I mean, I don't think the Platinum at this point is crashed and burned either.
I think people who left Platinum would say they did.
Maybe.
Platinum hasn't put out a compelling thing in years. Even the best stuff they do is stuff like Azure. What is it? Not Azure Dreams. The
Azura's Wrath.
No, the cop thing with the chains on the Switch. What was that called?
Astral Chain.
Astral.
It's something.
See, like no one
exactly.
Yeah,
you don't even remember it. Yeah.
But like that was a decent idea that I didn't think came together very well. But it's just like like they're not really a force anymore. Like a new Platinum game doesn't get anybody super excited, and it used to be like a news story.
No, you're right. Yeah. And I don't know. I guess we'll see. Do you feel like From Software will go out of its comfort zone and start making games for people besides its fans?
No. I mean, they've never done that.
Yeah.
Like From has never made a game that wasn't hard as nails and weirdly obtuse.
This is just
even to go back to the PS1
shift.
era.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just going to do another King's Field.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
Maybe they want to do remasters of their old shit.
Or maybe they want to dig up some of their old IP that's just been sitting there dormant for quite a while.
Maybe they want to have a dedicated Armored Core team now.
Yeah. That's possible.
Armored Core did well, and Armored Core is a lot simpler to pull off than Elden Ring.
What are the chances of them maybe making another Dark Souls? A more linear...
0.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because, you've kind of been talking about how, some people may miss those types of games with Elden Ring.
Not to the degree that they won't buy Elden Ring 2.
Yeah. But what if they make Elden Ring 2 and they make more of a straightforward Dark Souls-ish game?
I don't think they will ever make a non-open
I tend to agree with you on that, too. It's like, why go back, know? But to your point, there are some fans out there that maybe prefer those other types of games. I'm not one of them.
Yeah, but there's tens of millions more who will like this better.
Yeah, so agreed. It'll be interesting, too, just to see...
You go where the money is.
It'll be interesting, too, just to see like how Elden Ring 2 does after a lot of people bought the first one and were like, oh, my God, like this thing is kicking my butt, It'll be interesting to see if it can hold the numbers that it did with the last game. But anyway... change is coming to From Software.
I think the key is that you don't feel like you're stuck.
Yeah.
That's it. That was the secret. That was the secret sauce they had to figure out to make that genre break out. Was people don't want to throw themselves against the same wall over and over again. You give them somewhere else to go and level up and come back and try it again later after doing some other interesting stuff. There's your success.
It worked for me.
And they will never, ever, ever go outside those lines again. Yeah. Because why would you?
Why would you? After the success you had.
That's just Stockholm syndrome if you want to do the linear throw yourself against the crashing waves thing over and over. Because having done that with Lies of P and Lords of the Fallen recently, I don't find that fun.
I don't either.
I never found it fun in the first place. It was just sort of satisfying when I finally got past it, and now I'm just but now I know there's a better way, and I don't want to go back to that. Yeah. So that's the end of that. And again, I think other companies are starting to figure out how to do that just as well as the older From games to some degree, or certainly people see, the Bloodborne fans seem to have accepted Lies of P
as their own
in a way that I don't understand, because I think that game is kind of trash. Yeah. But other than visually, but people, tons of people seem to love it and think it's the greatest thing since Bloodborne. So if other companies can fill that hole,
From Software
doesn't need to worry about it, and also From Software be competing with them. And if you're making Elden Ring, I think it's gonna be a long time before the people who make stuff like Lies of P and Lords of the Fallen can do anything on the level of Elden Ring.
Yeah. Another smaller story from the week. We've been hearing a lot of layoffs across the games industry. We talked about Epic laying off almost 1,000 employees not long ago. And we found out this week that Bungie has been forced into layoffs. Now, we ultimately found out that most of the cuts were to the community teams. It wasn't necessarily the nuts and bolts developers that were let go. But still, it was forced to lay off some people. I don't know what that says about what's going on with Destiny 2, except for the fact that the big expansion for Destiny 2 that was supposed to come out early next year has now been delayed into hopefully done by the end of next year. So I don't know if they're related. It's a little weird to have layoffs and then...
I think they probably are related in the sense that they don't need a huge community team because that thing's not going to be ready for another year.
Right. So you're saying they're related not in that they had to lay off developers and so they have a smaller staff and can't get the games done as quickly. You're saying that they laid off the staff because they don't need them because the games aren't getting done on time.
Yeah, you don't need a huge community staff when... the engagement's low because there's no new content for another
Everyone's
year.
Playing the same old Destiny 2 stuff still.
Or when Marathon gets pushed into 2025, which
that happened. That's the other part of this.
Seems to be... that game clearly was being shown too early when they first showed it, but that's some solid confirmation right there.
Yeah, that's the other part of the story. So the Destiny 2 expansion was delayed, and also Marathon has now been delayed into 2025, which is odd because I actually, on SIFTD, we had already listed 2025 as the release date for Marathon. Just as a wild guess, we kind of thought that
was kind of my assumption, but
apparently they thought it was going to come out next year.
Yeah, that's very optimistic.
And now it's not. It's not coming out until 2025 at the earliest. Think this says anything about stuff going on at PlayStation or at Bungie?
I think it mostly just says that no one anywhere seems to be particularly safe, and if you want to get into the game industry at this point, you're probably a little crazy.
You're right, though. It is kind of getting to that point. Almost any facet of the games industry is scary to work in at this point. It's an eye-opener, really. And the crazy part is that, you look at the finances, and the games industry is doing better than ever.
Yeah.
Across the board. And they seem more frugal than ever.
But the people who make the games don't benefit from that. That's all the codecs in the world.
Which they should. Game developers are so underpaid considering what they make generates much revenue.
The entire game industry needs to unionize.
It does.
It's the long and the short of it is that.
Honestly, not just the games industry, Matt. Every industry.
Well, most industries are.
It's happening. So. We just saw the automobile manufacturer.
Yeah, well, they've had a union forever. They had to renegotiate.
But they were just letting things slide for forever, and now they finally put their foot down and striked, and they all got huge raises. And that's the only way that...
Yeah, the corporations and the bosses are never going to do the quote-unquote the right thing.
Yeah, on their own.
You have to drag it out of them kicking and screaming every single time, but companies are not your friends.
Yeah.
The boss is not your friend. None of that.
The only way worker salaries in general are going to match the rising cost of living, inflation, things like that, is unionization.
Yeah, you
in
force it out of
every
them.
industry. You have to strike. You have to be like, we're not working until you give us a raise. So you're right. I think the games industry now more than ever needs to unionize.
Yeah.
Because they're just treating these people like trash. Like, they finish a game, 2 days later, they lay off 40% of the staff. Bye-bye.
Yeah, people need-
Thanks for working 80-hour weeks for the last 2 years.
People need to stop like this thing where it's like there's that period where I want to work in video games. I want to do video games. Like that's.
I'll do anything.
Yeah, people need to stop acting like it's a privilege to
Right.
kill yourself for these companies.
Yeah, I mentioned this in Ask Shane Anything this week. It's like, people have always asked me, do you want to go into game development? No, I don't, because I've talked to the people who make games. They're all miserable. Like, people think
Unless
that
you're an
making
Insomniac,
games...
you're miserable.
Yeah. People think that making games is like you go to work every day and it's like romper room. Like, no, it's like every other job. You go into the office and you sit in front of a PC for 9 or 10 hours, and you get up and you go home and sit in front of a PC for a couple more
do
hours.
a bunch of math and you move a little model 4 inches and
Yeah. It's not, you're not sitting there playing games all day. Like, that's not how it works. So
tighten up the graphics on level 3.
Exactly. Exactly. So anyway, hopefully I agree with you. Unionization needs to come to game development. That's the only way they're going to get what they deserve. And that's, again, the way it is in pretty much every industry in America right now. It's just the way it is. Another small story from this week is that Mortal Kombat 1 had a Halloween fatality, Matt, and they are charging $10 for the fatality.
That's impressive.
Impressive in what way?
Well, isn't that like a quarter of what they charge for that Aftermath DLC?
Maybe.
So like a full story expansion is 4 fatalities.
Right. It just... So Mortal Kombat 1, I don't think we actually have got sales for that yet.
I don't remember.
But it is generally the best-selling fighting game in the industry.
Yeah.
And
It has been for like 3 installments running. I don't see any reason why it would be different now.
they talk about their fans, like their family and NetherRealm. They're always talking about the fans, the fans, the fans, the fans. And a bunch of their fans just paid $70 for this game like a month ago, and now they're trying to get $10 out of them for a fatality?
if you got the ultimate thing.
Right. That's insane to me.
That's a $1.99 thing
Yes.
to me.
Yes. Or free. Just because you're like,
Yeah.
look, we just launched. Here's Goodwill. Like, you guys just gave us $70 for our game.
Yeah, and you're gonna give us money for the packs and the extra characters
Yeah.
and the horror characters and the season. You know, a bunch of you already paid for the first pack, and we're being very slow getting the Homelander out.
Yeah.
Or Omni-Man rather. Yeah, it's weird, and I can't imagine it costs that amount of labor to make a Halloween fatality.
Also, Halloween is kind of in this game's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Like, celebrate it with your fans. Give them the fatality for free.
I mean, Michael Myers has been in this game.
Right. Imagine the positive vibrations on social media if they just came out today and they're like, hey, here's this Halloween fatality and it's free. Imagine the goodwill.
Yeah, little holiday treats would be good.
And it revives the interest in the game. It goes through everyone's social media feeds again. Oh my God, they gave away a free fatality. They played this completely wrong.
Yeah, it's short-sighted.
It really is short-sighted. It is weird, again, coming from NetherRealm that claims and usually is very good about taking care of its fans. So this really caught me off guard. I was like, what?
I have a trend of blaming them for things, but like I'm going to guess this was Warner Brothers.
You think?
Yeah. This screams Warner Brothers.
They're like, you're not giving that away, you mean?
NetherRealm doesn't call those shots.
Yeah, you're
NetherRealm
right.
doesn't price stuff.
Yeah, they're not the ones who decide. But they can push back and go to bat for the fans and be like,
but also like is this a hill worth dying on?
well, also you got to remember, they're trying to sell that stuff. So they need as much money as they can generate to make the sale seem more palatable to maybe sell all this stuff. So,
But like, if I'm trying to remember that all those guest characters are owned by Warner Brothers.
Right.
So that if Warner Brothers just, and I know from experience and from personal friends who have dealt with them, Warner Brothers will pull shit from you internally. Like, it doesn't matter how internal or how integral you are. Like, they will punish you for going against the grain.
yeah.
There are weird things that have, and none of it makes any sense.
I've had, just on a personal level, I've had weird issues dealing with their PR. So,
I mean, they tried to shut down Arkham Knight's Batmobile. They wouldn't let them show the Batmobile at Comic-Con because Zack Snyder thought the Justice League Batmobile or the Batman versus Superman Batmobile looked too much like it. but
Okay.
but the Arkham Knight Batmobile was designed a year and a half before the Batman v Superman one.
Yeah.
So they were there first. But and the compromise was you can show the game Batmobile at Comic-Con for one day, and then it has to go away, and we're only going to show the movie one.
So dumb.
Like the film department was just running roughshod over stuff. But that happens in like Warner Brothers does not care about any of that. So I would totally be like, oh, how much should a Fatality? Oh, Halloween Fatality, $10.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way the people calling the shots at NetherRealm don't know the realities of what people are going to think about that when it happens. I do not believe that Ed Boon is the one who gave the okay on that.
No, I definitely don't believe that. Knowing Ed Boon, I know that that's 1,000% not true. However, I do think they have some agency to affect the decisions made by WB on some level.
I think you would be surprised.
That's really sad.
They are basically considered, I guarantee you that to Warner Brothers, they are basically contractors and nothing more.
Even though they own them.
Even though they own them, even though they've made them literally billions of dollars, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Warner Brothers is a bunch of corporate hacks.
So bottom line here.
To the brim, to the top.
Bottom line here, don't pay for it. Send a message to Warner Brothers that you will not stand for this crap. Go watch the Fatality on YouTube. I didn't even want to show it on the show. I was so pissed off about this. So we didn't show it. We showed a bunch of old Fatalities. But you can find videos of it on YouTube. Watch the video. Wash your hands of it. Move on.
And that's about all you need to do, really. I mean, once you've seen it.
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
That's why it's crazy. It's $10. It's nuts. Okay, another small story from
It's also different from what usually in the past their Halloween or like Christmas things have been like outfits or skins.
Yeah.
I know you like a pack of 3 for like less than this.
I know. It's crazy, dude. Another small story from this week comes from the Capcom camp. We found out this week that Capcom is working on replacing its RE engine. It is building a brand new proprietary engine. Let's talk about that first, Matt. Is that smart to build your own engine? So you don't have to pay to license out Unreal Engine?
I mean, it worked for them here.
Yeah.
They built the RE engine.
They did, yeah.
And they've been riding pretty high on that for a long time.
But do you think the RE engine is good enough? Did you think it was good enough?
Yeah, it has been. But clearly they want something that can... I mean, look...
I think it was passable.
Any engine can do pretty much anything as long as the tools to make it do that are in it. Mm-hmm. And so clearly they want to build a new engine that has a lot of built-in features and tools to do new things they want to do that they'd rather not... You know, it could just come down to like, we want to be able to do these things that can already be done in the RE engine, but we kludge together tools for that, you know, on the fly, and we'd like an engine that has all this stuff integrated from the start. It could be that simple.
The RE engine, to me, already has a look to it. Like, I can tell when a game is built on it. And I have yet
But I will
play.
also say most engines are that. I can tell what most engines are.
Maybe.
I can tell when it's Frostbite 2. I can tell when it's Unreal. I can tell when it's
I can't
RE.
really pluck out Unreal.
I can tell Unreal.
Unreal 5 I can because the games are advanced. But Unreal 4 I really can't.
I usually can tell Unreal. Unity is obvious most of the time, especially when it's 3D.
But like, Ubisoft's engine,
Source,
the Anvil engine, I can pick that out usually.
Yeah, Anvil is very clear. I mean, it's a little cheating
but also all these engines that we're talking about, I generally think are not as good as Unreal Engine.
It depends what you're using them for. Unreal Engine is still bad at open world.
Yeah, that seems so short-sighted and weird. But like for me, like, Leon looks like he's made out of plastic. I feel like a lot of the characters in the RE Engine games look like they're action figures.
They have a look. They don't do realistic looking skin very well.
Or the hair. I think the hair looks like it's got like glossy spray paint on it or something.
I mean, that's a choice. They don't have to look like that. That's a thing they've chosen to do. That's not an engine thing. That's just that's a house style.
That's weird.
I don't know why. I don't know how much conditioner they think all these guys are using. But
yeah. Remember the rain originally when they first showed gameplay from the RE4 remake?
I mean, that
was a choice.
That's not engine.
Yeah. That was just bad art.
That's just bad.
Bad art and bad decision making.
Well, the thing is, like, if you look at, like, so that's not an uncommon way to do rain. Like, Cyberpunk does rain the same way. They just throw a filter on the thing. The trick is, when you turn in Cyberpunk, the rain is going a certain direction, right?
It doesn't go change direction.
And when you turn in Cyberpunk, the rain is now, if it's going, left to right, and then you turn left, now it's coming at you.
Right.
In the original way they'd implemented it in Resident Evil 4, it didn't change direction. It just stayed static on like a curtain on your that's the problem.
Yeah.
And when you go back and look at what they changed on that, it's the same effect. It just turns with you. It might even just,
well, they toned it down.
They toned it down, but they also just made it so that when you turn, the rain changes direction. That's what made it look fake, was it didn't change direction. It looked like a constant filter that had no relation to reality. And like that might have just been like a 0 or a 1 out of place. Like you don't know what happened there. That was like a weird oversight.
Or they just decided to turn it to 10, and because there was just too much rain. It was obscuring. You couldn't see.
It was obscuring, but the problem wasn't that. The problem was that the filter was wrong. Like they were doing it wrong. Like when you
GTA remasters too. Same deal. The rain in that was
that was a very similar problem.
Yeah.
It just wasn't turning with the player.
Yep.
Which is bizarre.
But bottom line, this is good news no matter what. Capcom's going to have a better engine to make the games that we love look even better. My guess is it's probably not going to have games that'll be released based on that engine until maybe next gen. They have to ride out the RE engine for...
Yeah, this might be like the engine they plan to do like cross-gen at the end of this generation with.
That'd be my guess too. But bottom line is good
They might
news.
also know some things about the targets for the next wave of hardware that they want to be ready for to take advantage of. Because that was actually a problem with a lot of the stuff. This gen was like no one was quite ready to jump into the ray tracing world. No one quite had things ready. Now you're going to know a little bit more about that so you can prepare better. And they want, again... developers will tell you over and over again, the engine is not as important as the tools that are supported by the engine.
Yeah.
And you can write a tool for anything, but the more and more that's already in place and like it's been built from the ground up to we're obviously going to be able to have these tools in place, and you're not going to have to worry about will that tool crash, will it crash outside of the engine, will the engine not recognize the input, but if it's there from the beginning, you're going to have a much smoother experience.
Yeah, and don't forget that Capcom...
And you'll be able to make the games faster.
Yeah. And don't forget that Capcom uses this engine for everything. Street Fighter 6 was built on the RE engine. So it needs to be pliable, malleable.
And again, engines are. It's all about...
Good engines are.
All engines are. It's all about the tools you make to implement things. It's like how Frostbite 2, you couldn't have somebody climbing over something Nathan Drake style because no one had ever had anyone do that in the Frostbite engine before. And Amy Hennig and her team had to build that tool. Yeah. Now you can have someone do that because they built that tool and got fired.
Yeah, but I mean, look, there are still artistic things that can be better implemented in one engine than another. It's not just about the tools.
No developer I know would agree with that. It's literally the tool sets. The tool sets are what matter. The engines themselves are not as different as you might think unless you're talking about something that's really old. If you're talking about like Starfield, like that,
something that started being built 10 years ago.
Yeah, that you're probably talking about kludging something on top of something on top of something. And again, you even know that engine can look amazing because of what people have done with Skyrim, but that stuff just doesn't end up being stable enough to be able to put in a retail
mass
release,
market.
basically.
Yeah.
So you can make engines do pretty much anything you want. It's just a matter of do you have the time, patience, and sometimes money. But you see,
time is money.
Yeah, but you see people like player mods do free things that like some of the stuff that.
Well, sometimes they fix stuff in a day.
Yeah.
Where the developers worked on the game for like 3 years and didn't fix it before they released it. It's really bizarre.
But as some of my friends from like Ubi would say, it's like you never know what weird thing that is taking advantage of that could be very unstable. Yeah. And it's just not going to happen. Or no one prioritized it, so no one was willing to pay anyone even 1 day of work for that. That's probably which is probably what happened for stuff like the Jedi Survivor PC version.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, good news really across the board, though, is that Capcom's games are going to look better here in a couple years. And again, Capcom has so much IP that we all love that I think it's going to be good news for everybody across the board.
Fire Native asks if engines are all the same, then why got Unreal Engine 5? Because having the tools to do that high resolution and that high quality stuff built into that version of the engine streamlines everything tremendously.
But to your point, it's because the tools are there.
Right.
You don't have to build the tools.
Yeah, and that's the other advantage of the Unreal Engine in general is that everyone has made the Unreal Engine do just about anything you can think of. So the tools to do almost anything you can think of already exist for the Unreal Engine.
Or at least the building block for it is there that you can build on top of.
And it's not like something that a tool for Unreal Engine 4 is not going to be adaptable in some form with a little work even for Unreal 5. Yeah. So it's the thing about the advantage of the Unreal Engine is always that it's so well used and so universally used that you can if you need whatever weird ass thing you want your character to do, there's probably someone who's already made a character do that, and you can build on that.
Yeah,
that is the big advantage of having. It's also the big advantage of not having a homegrown engine. Is having the whole industry work on this.
Work on the same one.
The only downside is you got to. I mean, Epic doesn't really gouge you for that. So,
no.
I
mean, I think their business model for Unreal Engine, even with some of the proposed changes recently, are still great.
Yeah, it's way better than the Epic Game Store model.
Yeah, oddly enough. And then our final smaller story for housekeeping today is, unfortunately, we got news this week of a delay I think we're all going to be disappointed in, and that is that Ubisoft's Star Wars Outlaws has been delayed into an unnamed time period next year. It was supposed to come out before the end of March, and now they're like, it's just 2024.
We never believed.
Yeah, if you watch GameFace,
we were saying holiday next year from the beginning.
Yeah, and my guess is that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I
certainly it's what they'd like to happen. It might slip to 2025, but I'm sure they're targeting holiday.
My point is, I wouldn't count on this coming out in like the summer of next year. Once they got out of that fiscal year, now they're like, oh, we got a whole like extra 9 months now.
I think this is a solid holiday release.
I mean, it probably should come out at the holidays, Matt.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean,
late October, early November.
The other thing you can see is you see if you can synergize it with some Disney Plus release or something for like, figure out when the Acolyte's going to hit or something, and maybe put that out around the same time when Star Wars is in the mind share.
Yeah.
But like, I think later half of the year is fine for this.
Yeah. Yep.
Also, who knows what the schedule is going to look like next year overall? Like after everything in the world came out this year, we might be looking at kind of a sparse reality for 2024.
Well, oddly enough, I think it was Kotaku, and we curated the article, already did like a most anticipated games of 2024, which seems like they're jumping the gun a little bit. Just every game that's announced that isn't coming out this year, basically.
But it's like, I mean, for me, I'd want to limit that to stuff I was pretty sure was coming out in 2024, and that's not a lot.
It's not. Yeah, as of right now, 2024 is looking a little lean.
You might as well say Elder Scrolls 6 is your most anticipated 2024. Because, like, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Prove it.
Yeah. I mean, this, for me, would be near the top of my...
for sure.
Just being honest.
I mean, I'm trying to think of what else is due next year. I mean, I don't think we have any confirmation.
Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, Matt.
My God.
Come on, I know you can't wait for that.
I mean, like the Assassin's Creed Red might, maybe.
There should be.
But I'll tell you, if that slips to holiday, I bet Red will.
Right, because it's Ubisoft.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
Then again, they do dumb things.
Yeah,
they release
Ubisoft
some of their own stuff.
Ubisoft doesn't think the way that we think a lot of times.
Yeah, they did release Rocket Robot on Wheels the same day as Rayman 2.
Yeah, I mean, it will put out a glut of games and then not have anything for another 18 months. It's really weird how Ubisoft operates. It does feel like a lot of times it's like when the games are done, we're just going to put them out. It doesn't seem like it's all that strategic with how it releases its games, but we'll see. But as of right now, if you're expecting to play Star Wars Outlaws within the next 4-5 months, not going to happen.
Where the hell is Silk Song?
I don't know, man.
Actually, you know what? Like my fantasy team is getting very nervous about that Space Marine 2 thing.
Really?
We still don't have a release date.
You're right, and now we're almost tomorrow's November.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We're 2 months away from the end of the year, and that game doesn't have a release date. I don't think it's coming out this year.
I still think it will. I think it's going to show up in December. But I'll be honest with you, Matt. You probably didn't watch it, but we put up Dossier yesterday for our patrons, where we run down all the big releases for each month. November is good. Like, there's a ton of great games coming out in November, but they all come out before November 17th.
Right.
So literally, the next 2 weeks are going to be insane here on GameFace. It's like October never ended.
Because you want to be out in stores comfortably before Black Friday.
Yep. But the second half of November and December, oh boy, we're going to be working for some episodes.
I mean, it's Avatar and Take Care.
And Space Marine 2.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
It would actually be a good time for it. They wouldn't have a lot of competition. But the fact that it's 2 months out. I mean,
Silk Song as well. I mean, what the hell?
Silk Song is somewhere next year.
Yeah, I don't think it's coming this year.
Somewhere.
After it was supposed to come out on Game Pass in June. What the heck? It's an indie game.
It's like if you like, it's weird to me that like if you're gonna release in December a Space Marine 2, like, and you haven't announced it a month ahead of like, you gotta have some promotional time.
It seems weird, but I mean, the publisher that publishes that game, I don't know. They typically don't have big, glorious, long-running promotional campaigns. So they'll put out a launch trailer.
I mean, I guess you are selling to a very specific audience that already knows about it because of the Warhammer license. But
they'll put out a release date trailer.
But I just feel like that you could. That thing looks nice. It looks good enough that you could have a little breakout with it. Like if people who don't know Warhammer might buy that just because it looks cool.
Yeah, I mean, it looks gorgeous. I mean, visually, it's stunning for sure. So. Anyway, unfortunately, we're going to have to wait a little while longer to play Star Wars Outlaws. And with that...
That's okay. Make it good.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Delay it as long as you want. Like, just make it good. That's all I care about. That game in particular, I'm very protective of. So, yeah, if UB needs to go to 2025, I'm cool with that too. Like, I just want to play a great game at the end of it all. And I think that's going to happen. Okay, we're about ready to kick off the bulk of the show. And we're going to talk about Alan Wake 2. But before we do that, here's a word from our sponsor, LS Cream. LS Cream is a fine cream liqueur created by fellow gamer and sifter Stevens Charles. It's inspired by an ancestral recipe from Haiti called Cray Mass, and a double gold winner for its original taste at the New York Wine and Spirit International Competition. LS Cream can be enjoyed on the rocks or as a mixer for drinks with its rich blend of fresh cream and neutral grain spirits with notes of coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and nutmeg. It's great in coffee or to make espresso martinis. To learn more, discover amazing drink recipes, or to track down your own bottle using a handy store locator, head to creamls.com/sifted. That's creamls.com/sifted. I see Cray Mass has now become a thing in our chat, Matt. It's become one of our memes.
What is that? I can't hear the commercial. Is it just the way he says cream
says
LS?
It's a new Sifted meme confirmed. Yep. It's in the ad. It's like it's where the ancestral recipe comes from, basically. And I didn't know how to say it at all, so I asked Steve like how to say it, and he gave me the phonetics of it, so I said it correctly in the ad. But for whatever reason, our fans have latched onto it.
What is the word?
It's Cray Mass. It's something to do with Haiti. It's like the spices or whatever that they use in the drink.
So it's kind of a French word originally.
Yeah. And I may still be saying it wrong, actually.
Probably.
I'm 1,000% sure. But anyway, so here's the thing. It is Halloween. And if you're a parent, or if you just own a home in a neighborhood where the kids are going to come by, you're going to be sitting there on your porch all night tonight. You're going to be sitting in your house, getting up, sitting down, going out and giving candy, sitting back down. If you want to have fun doing that, it's not too late to go to your local liquor store and pick up a bottle of LS Cream and mix it with something. The great thing about it is if you mix it with like your coffee or something, like you're not going to get hammered. It's a liqueur. It just gives you like a nice little buzz, a nice, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just like this very pleasant feeling that you get when you drink LS Cream. Go to creamls.com/sifted. And you can go there and you can figure out where you can go locally to go pick up a bottle before all the trick-or-treaters start showing up. Or if you want it for the long term or if you want it for next weekend, you can also find places to buy it online and have it delivered in plenty of time for whatever you are celebrating. So again, go to creamls.com/sifted and hook it up. And with that, it is time to kick off GameFace 364 proper. We're going to start off with the game I've been teasing now for about an hour, and that is Alan Wake 2. Everything's worked out perfectly for us to discuss this survival horror game, Matt, on Halloween, in costume, no less. I'm kind of surprised, actually, that there weren't more horror games coming out here over the last few days. At least not big ones. Maybe people just cleared out because of Alan Wake 2. I'm not sure. I do remember, Matt, though, when they announced the release date for Alan Wake 2, we were like, they're crazy. There's too many big games. It's going to get lost in the shuffle. But I do think it maybe kind of has worked out. First thing maybe we should say or maybe we shouldn't say is the reviews for this game have been through the roof. I mean, through the roof. It's got like over a 90 Metacritic right now. Does that surprise you at all?
This year, no. Because this year seems to be the year of overrating mediocrity. Some of the review scores for things this year I do not understand.
Well, I'll say this, Matt. As somebody who looks at all the reviews from the major outlets on a daily basis and decides which ones to curate to Sifted or not to curate to Sifted, I will say this. This year in particular, I noticed that a lot of big games were handed to younger editors at the publications. And some of it is just the fact that they've just fired all the older editors because they don't want to pay them. And so there's been a lot of turnover and there's a lot of young people working there. But some of it, too, it feels like it's been a conscious decision. And maybe that's what you get. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to extrapolate that and say that's why the reviews seem unreliable this year. I'm just pointing out something that I've observed over...
I mean, to some degree, who cares?
Yeah.
It's just Consumer Reports nonsense. It's safer to give them high reviews so people don't send you death threats.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's, whatever.
Yeah.
But, like, this game ain't a 9. This game is not a 9. Come on.
I agree with you, Matt.
Come on.
I agree with you. I think this game is overrated as far as its Metacritic. I'm not going to point out any specific website or publication that overscored it. I just think in general it's been overscored. Let's talk about the plot, because the plot to this is very important. Although one anecdote I want to share before we get into the nuts and bolts of the game is that on Friday night...
What is this footage on?
This is PlayStation 5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's real dark. Mine isn't this dark.
Well, it's time of day, right? Depending on the time of day.
Not this part.
It doesn't shift?
This part is the same no matter what.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, the beginning of the game is the very
Yeah, I
specific
guess you're
time.
right. Yeah, this part right here probably would be the same time of day. But also it could just be
So
the
is
angle.
This is much dark.
It could be the angle that you're sitting at looking at the TV as
Some
well.
of it,
Or
yeah.
the lighting on the TV.
True. It's just I can't. It's much brighter on my. I'm playing on Xbox. So I decided not to give Tim Sweeney any money.
No. Well, here's something interesting. So again, I was at the mall last Friday. My wife and I were going out to eat, and after we got done eating, we went to Target to just pick up a couple things before we went home. And I was hanging out in the electronics section while the wife was doing her thing, and I heard somebody walk up to the counter and be like, "Hey, I'm looking for Alan Wake 2." And I stood there just listening to the conversation. I didn't want to butt in right away. And I watched the Target employee go to the computer and try to look it up. I watched the person try to look it up on his phone and couldn't find it on Target.com. And they just like spiraled. They're like, what is going on? Why does Target not have this game listed? I know it came out. So I had to step up and be like,
Alan Wake 2 doesn't exist. Alan Wake wrote it out of existence.
There is no physical version of this game. No. It doesn't exist. They may eventually release some limited edition thing, maybe.
Yeah.
But
I'm a little surprised there wasn't some kind of like limited edition.
Right.
Get a statue of Alan Wake back to back with Saga thing.
Nothing. You cannot buy this game physically at all. It's digital only, which is weird for a game that's a lot of people are saying is a Game of the Year contender. Now, let's talk about the game. The plot of this game basically is based around the town that Alan Wake disappeared from in the last game. And there have been cult murders in the town. And so the FBI is called in. So agents Saga Anderson and Alex Casey show up in Bright Falls. Bright Falls is in Washington.
Alex Casey is fictional.
Alex Casey is
Alex Casey's Max Payne.
Sam Lake.
Yeah, but it's like as you go further in and it turns out that Alex Casey's a character in Blake's books, it's very clear he's Max Payne.
Right.
Like if they could have used Max Payne in this game to like make the Remedy verse like finally come full circle, I think they would have.
Yeah. I would also argue that if there's any person in the games industry that rivals Kojima for hubris, it is Sam Lake. He is just the opening of this game, just like a Kojima game. Written by Sam Lake,
Yeah,
directed by Sam Lake, game director Sam Lake. And then he's plastered all through the game. He actually plays like two different characters.
Yeah, he plays the actor who plays the character and the character.
And the character.
And he's constantly making the Max Payne face, which is great.
It's like an inside joke.
Yeah, because he's supposed. I think he's Max Payne in all but name.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and
I mean the Remedy Cinematic Universe, whatever the hell they're calling it.
Yeah, I will
Connective Universe.
Yeah, I will say this. For all that, he does make better games than Kojima.
He does.
Overall.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. I'm sure people would fight us to the death over that. But,
oh yeah, but
I would agree with that.
Don't care.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think he steals from movies and TV way better than Kojima does, because there's a lot of Twin Peaks in this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of Dark Tower in this. And
there's Twin Peaks, there's Lost, there's a little bit of like 5 different like pop culture properties.
Well, the other thing is like he's one of the reasons Sam Lake is in this so much is because it is referencing The Dark Tower by Stephen King, where Stephen King is a literal character in the story. who is the author of the story you're reading, that the characters have to go ask what they need to do next. Like, clearly there's a huge connection there, which I appreciate because it's one of the weirdest things King ever did.
Yeah.
It's a very meta thing, which it's interesting early on where, like, because you've got this mind place thing, and I'm like, is she psychic? Is this what's going on? Oh no, she's just being written rather poorly.
Well, I just don't understand. They transport you to this. Well, anyway, let's talk about the plot first before we go there. So these FBI agents show up because there's been a murder in the town, and there's been cult activity in the town. As it turns out, the person who was murdered is a former FBI agent who had kind of gone AWOL, and no one had heard from him for like 10 years or whatever.
He's been missing for 13 years.
Yeah, and turns up. Also, by the way, Alan Wake has been missing for 13 years. He was in the town, and he disappeared. And so the timing of all this is kind of working out. However, Matt, can you imagine an FBI agent goes missing, there's a murder in the town, there's a cult on the loose, and you send 2 FBI agents and that's it? And then it's just 2 FBI agents and a bunch of podunk cops from the local town trying to solve, like, a serial killer murder?
Well, they don't know that happened when they send them.
Right, but as soon as they get there, they know. And there's no backup that comes in. They're in there, they're, like, totally desecrating the murder scene, corrupting all the evidence. They're picking up everything. They're getting their fingerprints all over everything. Like, to me, this game all starts out with a bunch of bullshit. Like, I get right out of the gate, I'm like, I don't believe any of this. And then the game starts going to one of those places where it's like, this happens, but did it happen? Or is this in their mind? Or is this real? And you start tossing that into it, and you're like, okay, well, does that mean that, like, they're all living in this fantasy land, and that's why backup hasn't shown up from the FBI, and there aren't investigators, and they're botching all the investigations?
Sam Lake does call backup, but, like, none of the stuff makes any sense with reality because it's not reality. It's just, it's what Alan Wake is writing.
Even the FBI stuff.
Oh, yeah. None of that's real. That's all that's the story. That's why he's so shocked when he finds them, because he's like, you're all fictional. You're people I made up.
Well, they're finding the pieces of his book. They find pages of
which
his book.
Which are about him, about them.
Well, they tell them what's about to happen in the murder mystery.
Because they're in the story.
So they don't exist? None of this exists? This is all in someone's head? See, this is what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
like, I hate stuff like this, because it just...
But it may or may not, because reality is being altered, and the reason you know that, because there's some element of this does exist in reality, because something about Bright Falls it's like a Silent Hill thing. Like, Bright Falls
is real, it's there.
Is real, but what's happening in Bright Falls is fictional. And one of the reasons you know that it is real, but it's also fictional, is that there's agents from the Control games bureau there, and they're trying to figure out, they have detectors and stuff, and they're trying to figure out why fiction is so strong here. Like, they're basically trying to figure out why reality is breaking down. And one of the reasons Alex Casey is not a real person. He is a fictional detective in Alan Wake's stories, and Alan Wake has ended up in one of his stories and at one point is telling his own characters about his experience on a talk show that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's like I said, very meta, very David Lynch. At some point, you have to kind of let go of what's real and not real and just sort of see where it ends up. That is not for everyone.
Well, it's like they're sentient, but they go into the town, and people in the town remember them from, like, long ago, but they don't remember...
Because that was a previous draft of the story, probably.
I don't know. It feels like a cheap plot device to me.
Alan Wake is not the best writer in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of clear. Like, when you just... I mean, that's the other thing about the Max Payne connection. The Alex Casey stuff is written like Max Payne. Like, turgid, weird noir prose. Like, it's... Like, Alan Wake is not a very good writer. Like, that's one of the things that the games have always started. He's a pulp nonsense writer.
Right.
And you're in a pulp nonsense story, like you said, while the FBI agents are worried about whether they put a tarp over the body, then they come along and just move everything around and pick everything up, and none of it makes any sense because it's not well written. Not because the game's not well written, but because Alan Wake is not a very good writer.
So you're saying that they're intentionally writing it poorly?
I think it's all part of the meta narrative. Yeah.
Okay.
From the very first seconds of this game, they are working with the meta narrative. Now, Saga, there's something special about Saga.
Yeah, like, why Saga sentient and nobody else is?
She made us think she is. Because she's the other side of the coin from Alan Wake, because both characters, as you play them, have their mind palace thing.
I thought it was palace, but it's mind place.
She says mind place. The term is mind palace, but she even says it's my own version of the mind palace. I just took the other A out of it.
And his is a writing room.
And his is a writing room. So what are you doing in each of these rooms for the most part? She is deconstructing reality to try to make it make sense. He is trying to construct reality because he's the writer. Mm-hmm. And so they are kind of in conflict, but they're also sort of doing the same thing from opposite directions. Mm-hmm. I haven't finished the game, but I assume at some point they kind of...
No, they converge.
Butt heads on that. That's the issue with this game for me is not that the story has... I mean, I think the actual story is fairly interesting. I just think it's really boring to play. Like I have I'm playing it is boring.
It is boring.
The puzzles are rudimentary and kind of insulting. Like I've missed puzzle solutions a couple times this game because they were so simple. I didn't think that could be the solution.
Like the poster on the wall, the 666 poster.
Yeah, the poster on the wall, or like the first stash you find that like it's got a lock on it and it's blinking lights, and the answer turned out to be just press the blinking lights.
Right.
I'm like,
it can't be that simple.
That's that. Oh no, it was okay.
Yeah,
like it's that kind of thing. Like it's this, and it's like it's so silly. Like, it's a very silly game.
It's like, once this stuff started at the beginning, and it was like, this is completely implausible. And then I started to realize, to your point, like, some of this stuff is real, some of this stuff isn't real. I got sick of trying to guess what was real and what wasn't.
Well, what's real and what isn't is not important. It's the David Lynch thing. It doesn't matter. You might be able to figure out once you have the whole picture and you finish the thing, and you can look back and say, oh, maybe this was this, or maybe that. But there are no definitive answers to it. That was true to some degree in Control. The advantage Control had in terms of presenting that was that when you went out on the mission or went out to deal with the artifacts or whatever, everything could go crazy. But everything
you knew it was supposed to.
Right, but even the building in Control doesn't actually exist in reality the way you think of it as existing in reality.
Yeah, it's a construct.
Like, that's just how Remedy works.
But
the Quantum Break guy shows up in this game.
But the difference is the game explained it better. Like, it explained... I knew that was what was happening. Mm-hmm. In this, it's like, you're supposed to infer it, and it's like, okay, if this isn't real, why is there pain? Why is there fear? Why is there any of these human emotions if none of this is real? Again, I don't even want to think about this crap when I'm playing a video game.
Why would that make... And, I mean, if you expect to feel pain, you're going to feel pain. Like, that's what it is.
No, I mean, you have nerve endings. Either they fire or they don't. Like, either they're there or they're not.
People can feel pain in dreams.
I never have.
It has happened.
Maybe.
Like... if you don't, again, it's the Matrix thing. If you don't know the difference between reality and the dream, who's to say what? I mean, that doesn't make a lot of sense. You probably shouldn't die in the Matrix. If you die in real life, if you die in the Matrix, because how does that work? But you accept that as a kind of a condition of this sort of thing.
This is one of those games where if we were on Invisible Walls and Marcus was talking about this, he would call it a bunch of shite wank. Like, that's how I feel playing the story. I feel like they're like, okay, we're going to establish these rules. You don't know if stuff's really happening or not, so we can do whatever the hell we want, and it doesn't matter, because is it real? Is it not real? Like, it's just cheap. Like,
well, I don't agree with that, but I'm a David Lynch fan, so this stuff doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Twin Peaks isn't for everyone, but like...
I mean, I wouldn't call myself a David Lynch fan. I can appreciate it. But the difference, again, is like when you go into a David Lynch film, you know what you're getting into. Like,
I knew what I was getting into in this regard with Alan Wake. That's pretty much what Alan Wake is.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't feel like the first game...
The first game absolutely does that. It doesn't have... It's not as strong like a parallel meta-narrative thing, but the question of whether Alan Wake actually exists and whether he's in his own story or not was central.
Well, that was the whole story of the game.
Yeah, and that's the same thing here.
See, I didn't feel that. Like, I felt the story of this game is solving the cult murders.
No, the cult murders aren't real. That's his story. He's writing
Right,
that.
I get that.
That's
but
why
he still needs to solve it, though.
That's why
he needs to finish the book.
Well, yeah, but that's what you're trying to do when you're playing as him.
Right, you're trying to solve the murders.
You're trying to finish the book so he can get out of the book.
He's trying to get out of the dark whatever world that he's trapped in. Who cares about
the murders? They're not real.
But I care about him as the player. I'm the detective. I'm the FBI agent. It's my job to solve the murders.
You're not her. She's not real either. You're trying to figure out who she is. I don't
want to think about this dumb shit when I'm playing a video game.
Well, then you shouldn't be playing Alan Wake, I don't think.
I guess not. I guess not.
That's not what if you're trying to solve a murder mystery, that is not what this game
But my
is
point
about.
that I'm getting at is it makes the plot seem boring and dull. I don't care about it because it does nothing's real.
I don't agree with that at all. I think it's one of the best horror plots in the last 10 years. I just think the gameplay sucks.
I completely disagree with that.
I think this is one of the first horror games whose stories I've actually liked and been interested in.
It totally turned me off, like right out of the gate.
The problem is that I think the gameplay is boring as hell.
I'd agree with that too.
I don't care about traversing through things. I think this stuff is annoying. I think the flashlight mechanic's annoying.
Have you run out of batteries, by the way?
No, but I've come close.
I did.
I
And when you
just
do,
run around
you have
stuff.
to. You just have to go to another and load the game. There's no way to find if you've already found all the batteries in the area. There's no way to get more batteries for your.
No.
It
doesn't like automatically give you 2 or something.
No, you're out, and you cannot use the magic wand that they give him anymore.
Right.
And so you have to go back to an old save.
So if the flashlight runs out of batteries, you can't absorb light with the lamp thing anymore?
No, you can't.
Really?
The context sensitive things don't pop up anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's weird. Like,
what was the thing you said that you couldn't? That was a bug or something.
So I'm trying to figure out if I should talk about it now or later. It ended up not being a bug, because I did figure it out. But what happened was, so let's talk about how the game works, because there is an order of things. There is a set order of how things work in, I don't know, a process that you go through when you play the game. So basically how it works is you go out into the world and you're in the FBI, so you're investigating. You go and you saw some of the clips in the B-roll earlier where you look at a dead body and there's very specific points. There's not really an investigation. Like, it's just like, hey, click on this. That will tell you something. And what happens is that gives you a clue. And then you go to the boards, which is straight out of like any, murder mystery TV show or movie that you've ever watched, where they have the cork boards and they have like the cards and they're drawing lines between clues with the threads and stuff like that. You do all that, and then that gives you, I guess it's new mission objectives. Ultimately, you solve the stuff in the board, and then you get a new mission objective. Then you go out and solve that mission objective. You get more clues, rinse and repeat, and that process just repeats throughout the entire game. What had happened to me was I even tried to use like a walkthrough to solve this because I was stuck for like an hour and a half. What had happened was some of the clues were buried in a file that I never thought I needed to use. So I was using the file for the cult or whatever, and it turned out I needed to use the file for murders in the town. And so I had never gone and I had never searched there. And so buried in one of those files was 2 picture clues that I had not discovered were in there once I found them, and it was very easy to place them because that's all like automatic. Like, the other thing I would say too about using the clues is like the clues don't end up matching the stuff on the board that I think it should match most of the time.
I found it did most of the time.
Like maybe half of the time.
But it's like, it's all kind of, I mean, it's just sort of like in another game, looking at all the things would make the characters say something like, oh, that means this, and then this, instead of that, you have to go in and actually put them where they go, and then the character figures it out. It's like basically they've added a step. I kind of like the conceit of it. I think Alan Wake's version is more interesting because he's writing stuff and changes the world by doing it, whereas she's deducing stuff. The one nice thing about the board is when you highlight unsolved parts, it will tell you what you need to do to find those. So it's like either talk to a person or find more evidence. So you're okay, so I gotta go talk to somebody. I get it. So that helps. I figured that was more or less what happened when I think I might have got stuck in the same thing, because the thing is, it has a little icon that tells you there's something new you need to place in the thing. But when the
icon had disappeared off the file, that's why
because what happened to me, it might have been the same thing, because I think it was in chapter 2.
It was me it was the whole heart thing.
Maybe that might, yeah.
The heart was refusing to appear in the freezer for me to get the heart out of the freezer. And nothing I did would change it.
Okay, so mine was earlier than that. But I learned that lesson off of, I think it was when he first comes back to life and disappears. And I couldn't figure out how to get, because I went in and I saw that, like, oh, the one case thing is marked, so I go that, so I put the stuff in that. And then nothing was happening, and it turned out that I also had new stuff for the case that I defaulted to when I opened the chart. And because I'd already looked at it with those new things, it was not marking it as new, and I didn't realize I had new clues
that's what happened to me. Just a different part of the game, but same thing. Like the little yellow dot had disappeared off of the file folder. Yeah. And so I was just like, there's no new clues in there.
It was literally because I was opened the thing, and then I saw there was a new thing, so I went to that, and I just never put the new clues on in the first one. I didn't think of it.
That happened to me too. Yeah. And when I went and looked at the folders, there's no dot there. Yeah, and I'm like, so finally, when I ran,
if you're stuck, basically you got to go in and see if there's any photos. Look in every
folder and try to find clues. That's exactly what had happened. That's how I finally figured it out. But there was no walkthrough to help me with that. I was like, this is the last thing I could try.
And this is what I mean when I say the gameplay is kind of meh.
Yeah.
Same with like things where like they don't do a good job of telling you where things are or what things. Like there's a point where part of the lake drains and it's like optional. Go look for that stuff where it was flooded before, and you can go look through this little area where the beach is uncovered, and then there's another path, but if you take the path up, you're back where you've been, a place you've been
garage
like a bunch of times.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, that can't be right. And it turned out you had to go through that whole area, and then you go across another bridge, and now you're in a place you couldn't get to because it was flooded before, but it's like on the other side of the map.
Yeah,
and it's just, and then you have to go through all this other stuff, and then finally she's like, oh, I think I'm done here at random, and you're like, like that's just not what I thought when you say look at the parts that were flooded before. I'm looking at the fucking beach.
Yeah,
I'm
looking at for mud.
Yeah, and there's nothing there.
Something that was underwater,
and it was just unclear.
Yeah, like I don't know. I didn't think like the clues fit where they were supposed to. Like sometimes they did, but a lot of times they didn't. Like I don't know. It didn't feel like it mattered. Like it was just trial and error. It's like you just keep clicking the photo on whichever index card, and whichever one it sticks to, there you go. Like I found that like it was just pointless after a while. The game was just doing everything for me.
For early on, once I figured out how they think, like I know which one they go on every time. Yeah. But it's just busy work, really. Yeah. It doesn't tell you anything new, because most of it's the character figuring out something you've already kind of figured out if you've already picked up the clues.
Right.
What else could they mean? It's not a complicated thing until you go to the profiling part where ghosts just sort of tell her where things are. Like I don't understand that part at all. Although that made a lot more sense once I realized that she's a character in a poorly written story.
Right.
Like Alan Wake is just sort of using this as a device so she can make those leaps and get there, which is why she's such a great FBI agent, as Sam Lake's character repeatedly says. Like no one knows how you make the deductions you make, and I'm like, oh, it's because she's magic. Is what happened there. And then there's like weird things like she encounters the janitor from Control at one point, who seems to think there's some significance to her name because he
remembers her.
Yeah, he remembers her from something. A lot of people remember her from things, which I'm assuming is because they were characters in other versions of the story that Alan Wake scrapped or has been writing under the lake for 13 years, or has been in the dark place, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the one thing I left out of the gameplay loop was that when you go and you profile afterwards. So you place all the clues on the board, and then that sometimes opens up new profile options for specific characters. And then you go and you basically just watch a cinematic, and suddenly there's new mission objectives to...
Well, and it's like things were like... I mean, it's clearly supposed to be weird because she's like... The two witnesses, she's like, oh, they found a necklace they're not telling me about. And then she's like, but I need that necklace you found. And the one girl's like, how did you know about that? Yeah. It's like, okay, so something's weird here. So, it's David Lynch because the woman in the traditional diner waitress outfit is like, oh, I know you. I have this accent, even though it's Washington. And it's like, there's just all these tropes colliding, and it's just I really do think it's intentionally that Alan Wake is kind of a hack. Like he's not the great. He's writing pulp nonsense, and part of it is because he's writing to get out of this. He doesn't really care if it all adds up too well.
He's just trying to find a way out. Yeah. Which is like New York City. Like a 2-block section of New York City. Yeah, it's a dark part of New York City. I mean, I really did like the talk show stuff. Like, the acting in that was really good.
They've always done weird live action stuff in their games, even back to Max Payne. But like, I think this is the best they've ever done.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff is very effective.
Yeah. This is more of an investigative adventure game than a shooter, though. I think a lot of people may, if you haven't played it yet, you may be like, oh, this is a third-person shooter with some puzzle. No. The vast majority of this game is investigative work, solving stupid Resident Evil-style puzzles like, hey, we need a fuse. Go find the fuse.
Bring it to the point that, like, when you actually have to do shooting, it's kind of weird.
It's awkward and weird.
That first boss is awful.
Yeah, in the woods.
That's terrible.
It was a nightmare.
You run around trying to like pick up more because you don't have enough ammo to deal with it. So you have to like run around and find the ammo and hope
While
it doesn't blindside you.
And you can't see anything because there's so many trees. Yeah.
And healing items take a long time to use. So if you get hit too much, you got all this red around the screen, and then you basically might as well give up.
Which is new, by the way.
Yeah, you have unlimited retries at least. Like the checkpointing's fine, but I think that took me 3 or 4 tries, and by the 4th one, I was like, if I don't get this, I'm quit. I'm not going to play this anymore. I just didn't.
Now, the more you play...
I would rather watch someone play this game than play it myself.
Now, the more you play, the gunplay becomes more prevalent as it goes on. Like, the first, like, handful of hours, you hardly ever shoot in this. Like, mostly you're just dispelling, like, the ghosts with your flashlight. You don't even need to use the gun. And then the real enemies, like, you shine the flashlight on them, it reveals a weak point that you can shoot to do massive damage.
Yeah. But not that it ever really seems to matter that much.
Yeah, it doesn't. It seems like it still takes the same number of shots, really, to drop. Like,
I never noticed a whole huge difference on any of that.
Yep.
Also, weirdly hard to hit that spot.
It is hard. Even with the shotgun.
Yeah, like a lot of times I'm like, I'm pretty sure I hit that.
Yeah.
Same with the dodging. The dodging is very squirrely.
Well, the dodge is squirrely, but one thing I noticed is that you can dodge on the ground as well.
Yeah, you
so
can.
once you're knocked down, you can kind of scramble on the ground to get out of the way. And it does work. The window's pretty wide open as far, like, it's not, you don't have to be like Joe Gamer to be able to time it. Like, the timing window's pretty wide. The combat in this just felt like a means to an end to me. Like, they're like, oh, we need to have this in here so there's action in the game, but...
Which is weird to me because I really love the shooting in Control. It feels like a big step backwards from Control.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand, but...
Yep, and then, so if you when you're playing a Saga, you can upgrade your guns. Like 3 different levels for each gun, but it's so expensive. It's, like, insane. Like, you have to spend, like, 17 of those things that you find in those lunch boxes to upgrade, like, the handgun one time?
Pieces. Yeah.
Like...
Well, then Max Payne, Alan Wake gets his upgrades much easier.
Yeah. Well, he has, like, a drawer that he pulls out that has envelopes in it, and there's, 20 envelopes or something like that?
No, it's more. I think there's more like 9.
Oh, really?
But you shine a light on the symbols you find on the walls and stuff, and you get an upgrade. And each symbol equals one upgrade.
One upgrade, yeah.
They're all words of whatever, words of power. I did find it funny that they're all like, it's like word of gun to upgrade the guns, word of stuff to upgrade your inventory.
Yeah.
It's like okay, like there's a sense of humor here that maybe doesn't always translate properly.
I didn't find the game very funny at all. I didn't really find any of the jokes landed, really. Some of the stuff in the talk show is kind of funny.
The talk show is supposed to be unsettling more than anything else, but like, and also that guy is clearly,
the actor who plays the host of that show is good.
He's very good, and that character is more than just what you see there, obviously, later on. But it's Oh, this is a better game than Control? No,
Control's better.
No, not in a million years. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's a really to me it's a really interesting Lynchian story that's buried under one of the most boring games I've played this year.
Well, eventually the big twist for Alan Wake is that he gets this magic wand called the Angel Lamp, which turns his part of the game into this dual reality thing where you flip the lamp and you see one thing, or there's like a big pile of stuff in front of the subway entrance. You turn on the lamp, the stuff disappears, and you can go into the subway. It's like that type of thing. Like, you turn it on, there's a doorway, you turn it off, the doorway disappears. It's a lot of this. I mean, we've seen it. We just saw it in Lords of the Fallen.
I mean, I think that's what a lot of the modern... Is this Unreal?
I don't know,
Or is it their own thing?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That seemed the faster loading seems to have led. I mean, maybe just Ratchet and Clank being shown, so it's led to a lot of like reality shifting stuff with like instant portals and instant changes. It works pretty well here.
Yeah, we saw it in The Medium. We saw it in Lords of the Fallen. It's the same concept here. You have this device that you use. You turn it off or on. It changes the reality, basically. And there's some kind of clever stuff with that, but not really. It's probably just used on a base level, like, oh, there's no door, there's a wall. Now there's a door.
Northlight, it's their own engine.
It's the Northlight engine, that's what it's called? We talked about the skill trees. Again, like, I hardly upgraded any of the weapons because it was just, they asked for way too many resources.
I upgraded Alan pretty well.
Yeah,
like,
he's not...
She's a lot more expensive.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to find all those lunch boxes.
Yeah, him, it's like you just find the things to shine the light on, and there's arrows in the environment that point you to them. Like, if you just follow the yellow arrows, anytime you see one, it'll take you to one of those places where you shine the light and you get an upgrade for Alan Wake.
Yeah, she finds those sometimes, but that's usually the cult stash stuff. I don't know.
The visuals are incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
you're seeing that already in the B-roll. It's a stunning game.
Very good. I do think early on it makes kind of a negative. It made it have a negative impression where it felt like it didn't quite know where it wanted me to stand, and character models kept bumping me out.
I'm
of the way
constantly
and knocking
moving the
things
camera
around.
angle
Yeah.
to get a good view of the conversations.
Yeah, but other than that, like, yeah, it's gorgeous.
It cheats a little bit. Like, these aren't open. This is not an open world game. These environments are pretty small.
Yeah, but like that's fine.
But it
They
looks
don't need to be.
it looks
not
really
everything
good.
needs to be an open world.
Yep. But I'll say what I think the most impressive part of this game is, bar none, is the audio. The audio in this game is incredible, like across the board. Like, again, I played without music for the first hour or two to record B-roll and then turn the music on. Being able to hear the ambient audio and the sound effects in this, they are incredible. Like, when you get near the spirits, and if you have really good surround sound, the spirits are swirling like all around you. Like,
the shadows, like with Alan Wake's section where the shadows and they're like wake, like
and the whispering stuff.
That's very good.
Oh yeah, like it's incredible. And I just discovered, by the way, that the audio in this game was handled by our sponsor, SoundWizardry.com. Like, what a resume this game is for someone who works in audio.
I mean, that B-roll's been in the ad too.
Yeah.
Also, I thought it was funny that there's that B-roll that's been used. We use it over and over again. Everybody uses it over and over again. Of going into the general store and the deer runs through and then the monster breaks out. When I played this, the deer didn't trigger until I was turned around looking at the other side, and I missed it.
The deer ran through me.
I didn't even see the deer, and then the guy busted out, and I warped over to where he was. I was like, well, I'm glad I saw that in B-roll all those times, because otherwise I have no idea what the fuck just happened.
The deer ran like right through me.
Wow.
Like, it triggered at a weird time and ran right through my character model.
This is very funny. Like
these commercials,
these
little TV spots that are in the game.
There's like tour guide things who I think are actually plants from the control agency.
Maybe, yeah.
Because he's working with the guy who's like working on the sensor tower.
Yeah. Now, look, typically I don't like the whole live-action cinematics mixed in with the real-time cinematics, but
Here's the guy from Quantum Break.
Right.
It's just like this is like the Infinity War of Remedy games.
Yeah. I do feel like wait, what was I saying? I lost my train of thought when you jumped in there.
You don't like live action stuff mixed with.
But this is one game where I think it kind of works.
Yeah. For the first, and it hasn't always worked before. Like, I think they finally got the characters in this looking close enough to a live action counterpart that it's not jarring to see digital Sam Lake versus
it looks that good.
live action Sam Lake.
Yep, I agree. Yep. Most games I don't think pulls it off, though.
I do think Alan Wake looks a little too much like Jared Leto.
Yeah.
But since that's actually what the actor looks like, I guess I got to let that one go.
Yeah.
But there it goes. Words of Lamp.
Yeah. So this is upgrading Alan Wake right here. These are the envelopes in his drawer that you pull out after you shine the light on one of those cyclic patterns out in the world.
And a lot of them are very good.
What, the power-ups?
The upgrades. I mean, maybe the last one.
It's like I don't even want them.
Yeah.
Or I don't even need them. But also, ultimately, the presentation in this is great. Both the graphics and the sound are awesome. The writing is pretty good. To your point, the story's not terrible. I felt like I was working all the time playing this game, trying to figure out what was going on. And I got sick of it after a while.
You gotta let go.
But above all...
You gotta not worry about what's real and what isn't, because in the end, it'll all either fall into place or it won't.
Yeah. But above all, you're right. The overarching sentiment I have of this game is that it's boring. Mm-hmm. It's a horror game that's boring to play. I had no draw to go back and play this game. None. Coming off of Spider-Man, where I could not put it down. Coming off of Super Mario Bros. Wonder, where I could not put it down. Going to this game, it was a stark contrast. Like, I had to force myself to play this game, Matt.
And I want to see more of what happens, but I also don't want to play it anymore.
Right. Once I got stuck that one time, I was like, F this game. Like, that's ridiculous that I got stuck so long. I don't know how long I would have gone on if I wouldn't have started looking at walkthroughs, because I had to use the walkthroughs to eliminate everything else so I could finally find those clues that were buried in those files. Mm. It was only after I used those to eliminate everything else that I was like, well, it's got to be something in the files. And sure enough, I dug into all of them and I found it.
Oh, that's good, Andy T. Monahan. That should have been the lower third.
What?
Survival borer.
And And look, it may be that, I just came off a week where I've spent like 50 or 60 hours playing game. Maybe I was a little burnt out on playing it, but that really doesn't happen to me, Matt. Like, I never get burnt out on playing video games. This game just didn't hook me in.
Even for a horror game, I don't like horror games very much, but like, even for a horror game, this is dull.
Yeah.
In terms of like what you, well, I mean, I'm jumping from narrative tidbit to narrative tidbit. I'm happy with that stuff, but and things where, like I said, the puzzles, like, it just sort
replacing fuses,
it's sort of insulting.
Putting in codes.
It's like, okay, now I got to get through the same door, but the code's different. Let's go back where the same code was.
Now it's one number. Now it's a new number.
Flashing the number. Okay, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, it's just, there's nothing engaging me outside of the story.
Yeah. Even the dual worlds thing, it's so simple in this. Like, it's just like, flip the light. Oh, there's a doorway there now. Oh, I'll walk through the doorway. Like, now there's a hole in the fence I can walk through.
I kept waiting for that stuff to kind of get off the training wheels stuff, and it didn't.
It doesn't really.
Which was odd.
Yeah.
Like, even the corkboard thing with Saga, I was like, well, eventually that'll be harder to piece together and there'll be more stuff. And like, not really.
I always felt like I just let the game do it. After a while, I stopped looking at the clues and even trying to piece it together. I'm like, I'll just try every index card until it connects. Like,
well, it's weirdly linear in that regard. And like,
the whole game is extremely linear.
Yeah.
I mean, everything has to happen in the exact again, that's something I discovered when I was trying to get unstuck, is that everything has to happen in a very specific sequence.
And the corkboard stuff adds extra steps to what normally would be automatically handled in a game, even a game like this.
Yeah.
So basically, you have to learn that you have to sort of have to kickstart the quest completion. Like, there were several times early on where I'm like, okay, it's investigate the thing. I did investigate all the things, and then I realized, I got to put all the investigated things on the board before the character acknowledges that I've actually done that.
Yep. And then it'll set the next sequence into motion and rinse and repeat.
And to the point that you can't even sequence break some of that stuff, because the stuff you need will not appear until you've made the deduction by putting stuff on the board, which I guess fits the theme of it being a written story in universe. But it's a frustrating game mechanic.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I'm not going to slag anybody who liked the game more. Everyone's different. Everyone likes things differently. But you guys know I am a huge horror fan. I am a huge horror video game fan. I am a huge survival horror video game fan. And this game did not hook me at all. Like, I felt like I was like, I need to play more Alan Wake 2 now. Like, it was like this thing that it was like a job.
Yeah.
It was a job.
The narrative has hooked me in the same way that most of Remedy's stuff. I like what Remedy does with their stories. I like their interconnected universe. I thought, again, just like Quantum Break. I thought Quantum Break was an interesting story. I didn't like playing it.
Yeah.
Same thing with this. I like this story.
I like Quantum Break way more than this.
I actually like Quantum Break.
I finished Quantum Break, no problem.
Quantum Break has better like action gameplay.
Right.
Yeah, just like Control.
Yeah.
But like, it's, as you know, I was not super enthused about this game. I was actually pleasantly surprised by the narrative and let down by the gameplay somehow. Like, it's more boring than I thought it would be to play. It's more interesting than I thought it would be to, I don't know what
I think you made a good point. Like, you can, I feel like you can totally watch someone play this game on YouTube and not lose anything. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Because interactivity is what separates our favorite medium from everything else.
But I just don't think that... I don't think watching someone play like a section of this game and playing it myself are going to be all that different, because it's so
not
painfully linear.
Yeah, you have to do everything the same way. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So anyway...
there actually have been times when, if I did something like where I felt like I wasted too much ammo or too much battery power, I've just reset, like, loaded the last checkpoint, or like loaded the last.
Me too.
The last save.
I'm just like, why not?
I'm just like, yeah, I can do that better.
Yeah.
I'd rather.
I wasted a lot. It's like I ran out of batteries because I was wasting time running around trying to exhaust all the options until I was like, finally, I gave up and started looking at walkthroughs because I went through all my batteries.
Yeah, I looked up a walkthrough on the explore the previously flooded areas because I just didn't understand what they wanted.
Yeah, what do you want me to do here? Yeah,
and like, you go up to the area you were at before, but there's a new enemy there, and I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Or am I supposed to go back to the car? Like, I don't know, because like, it's optional. So what do I do? And so I looked it up, and like, you have to go further through here, and it was fine. There's a lot of stuff to find up there, but like, it's so odd. Like, it's so far from what they seem to tell you to do, and there's no hint that, like, you want to go all the way the end of the beach and then up here and then across the area you've already been, and then for some reason this area is open now when it wasn't before. Because
well, then I'm worried,
flooded,
like,
but
is
now
this real or not? Is this real? Should I listen to what these people are telling me, or are they not real? Like, again, this is the problem I have when you're playing, like, something where it's like, it could be real, it could not be real. It's like, well, who do you believe? Is it what this person's telling you? Should you actually do it, or are they fake? Like, I don't want to think about crap like that when I'm playing a game. Like, I just don't. Like, it just turned me off.
Who's real? Like Alan Wake? Or
like anything that happens in the game, I felt like I never knew whether it was really happening or not. But now to your point, you say everything's fake, which I never thought that was the case. Like, I thought she was real. Like, I knew obviously a human being can't go to some weird supernatural place.
When he washes up and he meets her, he's shocked because she's one of his characters,
right?
And so's Sam Lake, obviously.
But I still thought she was real. But you're saying she's not.
I mean, she's as real as anything in this.
But she's flesh and blood, right?
But also, she's a fictional character.
Anyway, it's just
you gotta watch more Twin Peaks, man.
I was never a big fan of Twin Peaks, honestly. Like, I never was. So, but anyway, I just ultimately found
Drive. There's
I have watched that. Yeah.
I mean, there's two versions of reality that are not compatible with each other in that movie, and that's similar things going on here.
But ultimately, I found the story to be frustrating to follow, and I found the game to be boring to play, and so therefore, I do not recommend it for people.
Yeah. Although I fair out all Mexico, but I did learn the hard way that, and they do tell you this, but I forgot. When you go to the mine place, the game isn't paused.
Right. Your character's still alive, live out in the world. Yeah.
To the point that, like, don't do that when people are talking or you'll miss the conversation.
That's true. Yeah.
And, like, to the point that I think
they do tell you that, though.
They do tell you that. I just forgot, and, like, I went to pause it because you usually go to the maps. That's what I'm used to with Spider-Man. Go to the map screen and you've paused it.
Yeah.
I went to the map screen and I died.
Yeah.
Because shadow people came up.
Pro tip.
I think the shadow people even seem to be somewhat inspired by the Twin Peaks season 3, episode 8, the Got a Light guys. Like,
no, I remember that. Yeah.
There's an element of
That's funny how that jogged my memory.
It wears its source material on its sleeve,
which
makes it pretty easy to sort of see what kind of mindset they want you to be in. One of the most interesting things in that regard is how different the mindset is versus Control. But I guess that somewhat makes sense because Control is about trying to control that element of the world, that the Remedy-verse, and Alan Wake is about being caught in it.
Yeah. Trying to escape it in some ways.
I'm curious where the Control Bureau is going to sort of manifest, or if it's just sort of there to remind you that that is also part of this universe.
Yeah.
And I never did actually play the Alan Wake DLC for Control. So
I didn't either, actually.
I don't know.
I'm sure that adds some context.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was. I know there's graffiti everywhere. It says Aw, Alan Wake, because that was the name of the DLC.
Yeah.
A lot of the graffiti is important.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff going on there.
Yeah. But I would only recommend this game to people who love narrative-driven games and people who are willing to be patient and sit and try to figure things out. Like,
yeah, the problem is, like, if you're into narrative-driven stuff and like David Lynch weird stuff, Stephen King stuff, you probably would be into this. But it's not a very good game.
You still got to play it. Yeah, there's still parts where you have to play. Yeah. So maybe just go watch all the cutscenes spliced together on YouTube.
Yeah, the problem is you wouldn't get the full experience because one of the things that makes it cool is being able to see it on full 4K and surround sound.
Right.
And like the full audio-visual experience is sort of part of it.
Yeah. The audio experience, particularly.
Presentationally, it's very impressive.
It is.
Like, it's next level on what they've done, and Control was already next level off of what they've done previously, and then Quantum Break was next level. I mean, they up the bar build every single time they make a game.
For sure.
This one just doesn't, in the same way that the first Alan Wake didn't really grab me gameplay wise. I didn't think the story in Alan Wake 1 was particularly compelling either. Mm-hmm. And this one I do think the story is compelling. I just don't care about
because you got to play the game
doing as in gameplay. Yeah.
So there you go. This Alan Wake 2. I wouldn't say that's 2 thumbs down from us, but would you recommend somebody buy it at full price?
I don't know.
I would really struggle to.
You mean it really depends on your patience level with, like, by the numbers, by rote survival horror gunplay. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're fine with,
and there's not a lot of it at first. It does ramp up eventually. It ramps up,
but it's like as long as you're okay with, like, really uninspired like gunplay and just, like, you know, this ain't Resident Evil 4.
No.
Like, you know, like that's the thing. It's like but it's like, if you value that kind of weird ass, I can't think of another game that's telling a story of this nature with this level of production value. Like you might be looking at something like, I don't know, Kentucky Route Zero.
The Medium.
Sort of in the same.
The Medium had a pretty good story.
The Medium did not have a story like this.
No.
It was the psychological elements of this are more interesting. The metatextual, metafictional stuff is more interesting. There's not a lot happening like that. The only thing I can really think of is Kentucky Route Zero, which is done with very small pixel art.
Yeah. Yeah. Big difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I would also assume that the price on this is going to drop.
Yep. Pretty quickly.
Relatively soon.
No physical version. It'll be interesting to see how that works out for him.
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, I saw somebody in the flesh trying to buy the game who was like, what the hell?
I mean, I honestly forgot it didn't have a physical version until you started telling that story.
Yeah.
It's just, it's so, I mean, I know that
it's so out of the ordinary.
Supposedly, it's like some kind of thing where it's like that's the only ways they could afford or were willing to be published somehow by not having to spend the money on distribution and having to go through all that. But it's like, I think that's going to become more and more common.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I admire the game's accomplishments, but I don't enjoy playing it, so it's very hard to give it a recommendation. But it's also very hard to like say I don't play this thing that's doing this really interesting thing.
Yeah.
Narratively and presentationally. I don't know. I'm torn.
Yeah.
It's like another mid.
Yeah, I would not recommend it to most people I know. I'll put it to you that way. But there you go. That is Alan Wake 2. Next up, we're going to talk about the biggest event of the week. Xbox had a partner preview, which was the first partner preview that Xbox
skipped something.
I did?
According to the lower third.
Oh, I did. See how I had it on the rundown. Oh, you're right. I did have that second. All right, we're going to talk about a game next. A game that I actually did not play, but Matt has played. And it is
you played it.
What do you say? Well, I have. Yeah. Because ultimately, there haven't been that many changes. And that is the Metal Gear Solid Collection, which is available for like everything.
The Master Collection.
Yeah, the Master Collection, Volume 1, because there are other ones coming. It includes the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games, Metal Gear from the NES, and what's the last game?
Is Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake from the MSX and Snake's Revenge from the NES. And I think it also has the Metal Gear NES version as well.
Wow. So like 8 games, 9 games?
Yeah, well, the 4 of them you'll probably never play.
Yeah.
Because those old games are hard to get through. Actually, they're all pretty hard to get through.
Yeah. Metal Gear Solid 1 at this point is
still the best one.
Sadly, it is, but it's also really archaic.
Yeah, but it's also extra archaic in this collection for some reason.
Why?
The problem with this collection is that they've done pretty much no work on any of the updating anything other than maybe putting the PS5 button like on the title screen. Like the Metal Gear Solid 1 is really blurry. And I don't know why. And I actually went back and...
Maybe they want it that way, because if it looks crystal clear, it would probably look god-awful.
It already looks god-awful. But I went and put my Metal Gear Solid 1 PS1 disc in my PS3, and it looks better than this. And it's still running at 720p. It's still the same resolution. It's just... it's almost... Any other version of this game looks sharper than the one in this. And I don't know why. It's
weird.
It's running through some emulation thing or whatever. It's just very fuzzy. Distractingly so in places. Because it didn't even look like that really on the old system. So I don't really get it. It is nice that they, here it is and it's playable and it's fine. They're all old versions. Like 2 and 3 are just the HD collection versions repackaged with the script book. You can look at the script, you can look at the master book or whatever and see the whole script and stuff. And just as an example of how slapdash this thing is, that first title, because you have that kind of master collection title screen that lets you pick those options, and then you pick the game. You can pick all the different language options, which is cool, though it seems like if you pick the European version of Metal Gear Solid 1, it runs at 50 hertz.
Wow.
It's PAL. So I guess if you really want to be authentic to your experience back in the day, you can play this at a moderately unplayable frame rate.
Yeah.
But and it shows like kind of in the corner, it's all like kind of busy text thing that Metal Gear does, and it shows the missions in the thing at the top of the Master Collection thing. So on the Metal Gear Solid 2 one, it shows tanker and shell kind of thing, and on Metal Gear Solid 3 it shows virtuous mission and whatever and it misspells virtuous. It says virtuose, which is a perfect encapsulation of the care and attention to detail in this collection.
Yeah.
And And if you look at the title screens on Metal Gear Solid 2 and 3, they say 2011 and 2012 because they're from the HD collection from 10 years ago.
Are you kidding me?
No, they're the exact same thing. They're the exact same games.
Wow.
This is literally just let's get these people to pay a third or fourth time for Metal Gear Solid 3.
Wow.
So I loaded each of them up and just sort of played through. I played until I died, pretty much, which wasn't all that long for most of them.
Because again, these games are very archaic. You got to play them now, and you're like,
archaic.
"What the heck?"
Like I'm sure there's people with muscle memory for this shit, but I find these games to be unplayable.
Last time I played Metal Gear Solid 1, I had completely forgotten how to play the whole game. I had to relearn how to play it again because there's just no other games that play like that now.
Well, I'll tell you this much: going back through, especially starting new games of all three of these games back to back. Do people seriously complain that like modern games are too tutorial-y?
Yeah.
Because I will take some tooltip pop-ups and button prompts over the 45 minutes of meaningless conversation that happened at the beginning of anything, whether explaining to Snake things that he should either know already as a high-class operative or things you should have told him before he left.
The codec conversations in these games are so long.
And there's things that are just like, what? I mean, they take themselves so seriously, and then they try to be weird and whimsical, and it doesn't really add up. And there's things like in this one where he's like, I didn't expect a Mei Ling to be so cute. And I'm like, there's no video component to the codec in universe. How do you see what she looks like? Only we can. There's pictures of them because we want to be able to have the gamers be able to see what you're looking at. But he can't see them.
I mean, a lot of the writing in these...
It's awful.
It's awful.
It's
awful. Yeah.
And it's
I mean, you can see some
now.
of the text here. It's just like, what? Like, it's
And
really
so much
hard
of
to
it
believe how these games are held up as these, like, bastions of game development.
I mean, look, visually, they were, there's nothing. I mean, I remember seeing that Hind D take off when that first came out. There's nothing else that looked like that on
Back
PlayStation.
then,
The tech is incredible.
Yeah.
Being able to zoom in and look at all this, like nothing like that. The fact that they can follow your footprints, nothing like that existed.
Uh-huh.
But the fucking storytelling is awful.
Yeah.
It is run through two different translators. It's by a guy who thinks John Carpenter was a good writer. Like it's awful. It's just terrible. And I'm sorry, but like
Eric Cartman has asked, I've never played a Metal Gear game other than the NES game. Are these worth playing?
No,
I don't think they are.
If you don't have any nostalgia for this stuff, forget it. Forget it.
We're now seeing the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Again, unbelievable.
Just boring AF. Who
Yeah.
cared? Whoever cared about this crap? I remember now trying to play Metal Gear Solid 2 and playing the first 5 hours and being like, what the hell are these people on that think this game is awesome?
But also, again, the opening of this game, this is not the opening, this is later, but the opening where he's on the bridge.
Right.
And just, no one ever seen anything like that.
Yeah.
And now, of course, it's like, you get people, they're doing the remake of 3, and everyone's complaining that it's not, color time, everything's not got this giant, neon green filter over everything. It's like, yeah, all those filters on these games were because the tech wasn't up to, the hardware wasn't up to doing what he wanted them to do. That's why on the bridge, most of the traffic is just two cars running by and a bunch of bright, Gaussian blurs of they're supposed to be headlights and taillights.
Right, yeah.
If you put that up on a modern thing, it's going to look ridiculous.
You can see exactly what it is. Yeah.
You have to redo it like that. It's everyone acts like it's an artistic choice, but it's really a limitation that allowed for a creative choice that worked at the time, but I don't think you're going to be able to get away with that now. Just look how green that is.
It's just dull. It's like the first mission, you're going to an oil tanker in the middle of the ocean and you're trying to rescue an ecological activist. It's just what?
Who cares? You're trying to get a picture of the Metal Gear Ray to prove that the government is doing another Metal Gear thing.
Right.
Which is funny now because it's pictures don't prove anything anymore.
Yeah.
It's what would that mean? Anything with this amount of tech in this game would be able to fake pictures pretty easily.
Yeah.
None of it makes much sense. They do the whole thing where it's we obsessively research military stuff and then we don't make any sense militarily.
Right.
Or things where it's Snake is running around it's oh, it's this, and it's AK-47s with an extra attachment, and then he says ASAP instead of ASAP.
Right.
It's just guys, they're sitting there, Otacon and him in the first scene are telling each other stuff that they both already clearly know, but they need to tell. It's just exposition. Metal Gear Solid 3, again, I hate that opening thing where it's they go through all this stuff about it's the first Halo jump, and you have to jump down here, and now your presence in Russian territory, Soviet territory, is an act of war. So you have to pick up everything to take it with you, and you have to even you have to bust your own shit out.
Fox Hunt Pound.
You have to take all your stuff with you, and like. In the previous scene, he throws the parachute over the cliff. He throws his watch over the cliff. He throws the helmet that says U.S. Army on the ground and leaves it there. It's just like, what? None of it adds up. And then like there's the whole thing where like you get there and it's like, I'm on my own. What am I supposed to eat? And they just spent like the last scene talking about how this has to be the fastest mission ever.
Right.
It's going to take 4 hours tops because that's how much fuel. It's like you can't fucking hold it for 4 hours, Snake. You got to eat constantly. Like, what do you have? Some kind of hole in your stomach? Like, it's stupid. It's fucking stupid.
It really is crazy how these games have been romanticized. Well. I know.
Like, trying to play Snake Eater now is, even with the subsistence upgrades, because this does have the subsistence stuff. They don't have Snake versus Monkey, because obviously a multi-platform game is not going to have Ape Escape in it. But you can, you can move the camera around, you can do all that stuff that you could do in subsistence that made the game, actually playable. Like, play Snake Eater and try to imagine the first version where you couldn't actually move the camera. It was just stuck behind him all the time.
No, it was a nightmare.
You have no peripheral awareness. You really don't have any peripheral awareness anyway. But it's so hard to get through and just like sort of figure it out. And it's like, okay, so like all this stuff, that's all this realistic stuff, and you have to do this, and you have to like eat this and do that, carve this, but you have a magic coveralls that can just change camouflage all the time, and you have to go in like 3 menus deep to pick it and change it. I hate that game.
It's the worst.
This is the fifth time I've tried to play Metal Gear Solid 3 in the 20 years or so it's been out, and I'm sorry, I don't understand why people like this thing.
Matt, don't you remember? I reviewed it for X-Play, and I gave it either a 3 or a 2 out of 5.
You gave it a 4.
Did I?
You gave it a 4.
I ended up giving it a 4?
100%.
Interesting. I thought I gave it something lower than that. But people wanted to kill me.
Yeah.
Or kill us. They didn't know I reviewed it back then, but they wanted to kill us.
Oh, yeah, people were mad for years about it.
Years about it. And I still contend I was right. Like, it was back then, it was like an 8 out of 10. Now, I don't even know what I would give it. But, like, to your point, I started having, like, horrible flashbacks of playing Metal Gear Solid 3, just watching the B-roll of this. I was just like...
Part of the problem with this is that, like, this is, like, some of the stuff that Kojima was doing with the gameplay in these games didn't have a precedent, really, at the time. So he was kind of making up the controls as they went.
He was trying to figure it out as he went,
And none of this is the direction we went. Like, you have to hold
He was not right very often.
you have to hold R1 to aim, to go first person, and then you have to hold square to pull the gun. How do you aim the gun now?
Yeah.
Because the aiming is the right stick. Both my fingers here. So I've been like using the right stick to aim with my
with your left thumb.
I'm like, what? It's fucking unplayable. Just let me fucking look with the. But they didn't remake this. I mean, that's why you need a remake of Snake Eater. That's why Metal Gear Solid Delta is a good fucking idea. The big problem here is that these games just aren't worth buying again. Especially if you already have the HD collection, you already have these games.
Yeah.
The only reason to buy this is if you are a completist Kojima Metal Gear person, or if you don't have the HD collection, or if you just want to support this because Volume 1 implies future volumes, and I do not understand.
Do you want them?
I don't understand what the purpose of the Master Collection is, if not to get Metal Gear Solid 4 off the PS3.
Well, there's already rumors now that they're working on that.
That has to be where the budget is going, because it didn't go to anything in this.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of concerned that the next Volume 2 will end up being like a portable collection.
Maybe.
It'll be like the Acids and
from the PSP
Portable Ops and Peace Walker and like in that, and then like the last collection would probably be like Metal Gear Solid 4 and the 2 versions of 5, Ground Zeroes and Phantom Pain.
Right.
That would be my guess of how they go.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the purpose of the Master Collection has to be to get Metal Gear Solid 4 rescued from the PS3 , right?
You would think, but it's after this, I don't know.
Why
man.
would you call it Master Collection if
work.
It doesn't have one of the main numbered entries in it? Not that they haven't done it before. I'm
confident that Konami's going to invest in the work that needs to be done to make that happen.
I agree.
After seeing this, like...
The Abrams, Metal Gear Solid 4 is not on PC. It's not on anything but the PS3.
Yeah, it's still trapped there, man. Yeah, it hasn't made it to PC or anything. That's the cell architecture. Mm-hmm. It's proprietary, and people learn how to work with it.
But it takes work.
I mean, you probably just got to rebuild the game from scratch, would be my guess. I don't know.
Probably pretty close to it, I would say.
Yeah. So,
or a really robust PlayStation 3 emulator, but that's a hard thing to do.
All I can say is I'm glad you played this, because I knew all along I had no interest in playing any of this. Like, I've never been a big fan of Metal Gear Solid. Even when the games were coming out, like, I had a better appreciation for them then, but now in hindsight, it's like, I saw someone in chat was
It's
like,
just so fucking
what
dumb.
N64 or PS1 games held up? A lot. There are a lot of N64 or PlayStation 1 games that hold up.
More N64 than...
Particularly
PS1.
as far as gameplay
In terms
is
of
concerned.
gameplay, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I'll still play Mario 64,
Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, it's sublime. Those games control amazingly well.
Ape
So
Escape.
some developers were able to find control solutions that have withstood the test of time. Some of them did, and Kojima just didn't. Everything that he tried, you're right.
None of this really works.
He was trailblazing. He just ended up blazing the trail in a different direction.
Yeah, and none of it really works in modern context. And that's why they're remaking 3 into something that I guarantee you when 3 comes out, the remake... Delta or whatever, like I guarantee you that left trigger will be aim.
Oh yeah, of course. Why wouldn't it be?
That's the
I mean, playing this whole thing is absurd.
This game
the CQC controls are insane.
Yeah.
The whole like repairing yourself and having to go all deep into those menus
So
to like
deep into the menus.
fix yourself.
This is better in the sense that you don't have to sit through quite as much loading,
Right.
And sort of the menus are snappier, but it's still tedious as hell.
Yeah. I don't know. So, look, I'm not disrespecting you if you're a big fan of Metal Gear. We all have things from our younger years.
I assume if you're a big fan of these games and they're still playing them, you have the muscle memory to be able to deal with these controls. Because to me, it's like trying to speak another language.
It really is bizarre. Yeah. But to your point, like, again, control schemes were just being sorted out back then. So I don't really begrudge Kojima for taking these directions. He didn't have any direction to follow. He's trying to figure it out, but ultimately he was wrong in most cases. So it is what it is. How much was this altogether?
It was $60
$60
for the whole thing, and then you could buy them individually.
I guess I would say maybe you recommend this for people who are younger and didn't grow up with these games.
No, absolutely. I would. If you were younger, don't bother with these.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother
Imagine
with
a younger player picking this up and trying to play.
I think people who have no nostalgia for these games shouldn't touch this.
Yeah.
There's no way you're gonna enjoy any of this stuff. It's so clunky. It's so weird. It's so dumb.
A blip in history says, if you wanted to see the potential power of a console early on, wait for Kojima to make a game with it. What I thought then. I think a lot of people felt that way. I don't think that's misguided, honestly.
That was absolutely true of Metal Gear Solid 2.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that the PlayStation 2 could do that.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason that trailer was the hardest area to walk through at E3 that year. It was people crowded around watching it over and over.
They couldn't believe how good it looked.
It was, and then that demo came out with Zone of the Enders, which single-handedly made Zone of the Enders a bestseller.
Yes.
And I remember, Miguel, we know Miguel from back in the Tech TV days. He got it, and we just sat there and played that fucking tanker demo over and over and over and over
again. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And all the watermelons you could blow up, and all the what different weird things you could. It was
a different time.
Yeah.
Andy T. Monahan asks, "Aren't these the only versions available digitally since they were delisted?"
That's probably true. The HD collections, I think, are gone now.
Okay.
Unless you have a physical copy.
Justin Horman, no, this is not only $20. It's $60.
It's 60. Like, I think each individual game is $20.
Can you buy them separately?
Yeah,
a la carte if you want to?
buy them separately.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
1, 2, and 3, and the MSX NES games are all 4 separate
packaged
things.
together as $20 packages.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, for some people, buying Metal Gear Solid 3 for $20, that might not be a bad deal to them. I don't know. To me, it would be. I wouldn't pay $5 for it, but to each their own.
No. I think if someone's used to modern controls and has never played these, because again, I would love to love these games. And I did like the first one a lot at the time, but like they've just been left in the dust in terms of usability, playability, and presentation. Like, it's just, even the one, the first one is the one I like the most. It's just too hard to sit through the turgid nonsense anymore. It's so dumb.
Again, Marcus, a bunch of wank. That's what it is. It really is a bunch of wank. So there you go. That's the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Volume 2, when do you think we're going to see it? 2 years from now, probably?
Maybe. Vincent says you can't buy the classics separately. That might be true.
Okay, so
just
the
1, 2, 3,
NES...
I think maybe you get the classics as part of the package.
Okay, gotcha.
But on the PlayStation, it does download as a separate install.
Okay.
The classics.
All right. So that's 2 thumbs down from us. I don't know if you're surprised by that. Neither one of us are big Kojima Metal Gear fans.
No.
But I also feel like we give him a fair shake. Like, I don't have anything against him. Like, his games just don't resonate with me. They are, in my opinion, the epitome of style over substance.
Yeah. Style over Metal Gear Substance.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the stuff that I do like from him are the things that he's really just only tangentially involved with, like Zone of the Enders.
Yeah. Yep. So there you go. That's 2 thumbs down from GameFace for the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1. Now we're going to move on to the biggest event from the week, which was an event called the Xbox Partner Preview. It was the first ever partner preview from Xbox, but it claims that it's going to become a series, and they're going to keep coming back. And basically all they are is just a chance for Xbox to show off the third-party games that are coming to Xbox in the near future. And so we got to look at some of them, although I would say in general, Matt, if these are the big third-party games coming to Xbox, I don't know. I feel like maybe they should have started things off with a better bang if this is going to be a recurring series that they're doing. Like, I don't have fond memories of this now, I guess is the way I would put it, so I'm not...
I didn't even know this happened.
Right, well, there you go. There wasn't enough big stuff in it for you to even know that it happened. The one big thing, and I think when everyone saw it first happening, everyone was like, oh my gosh, here it comes, is the Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater, which is the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3 that's in development right now at Konami. Everybody pretty much unanimously was disappointed with this trailer. The engine looks good, the game looks good, but the trailer was boring as crap. A lot of the comments we saw on SIFTD for this was, you can really tell the difference between Konami handling the Metal Gear franchise and Kojima handling the Metal Gear franchise.
Kojima's preview for this would have been some weird ARG, like crazy, like
it would have been interesting at least and fun to watch.
It would have given you no information whatsoever, but it still would have been like, oh, that's
entertaining. And this was just boring. It's like, look at the engine. Here's some character models.
Kept
like
you waiting, huh?
Here's
it's like
exactly.
stop it. There was a thing where I think David Hayter was actually involved in some of the promotion for some of this.
Oh, he said this is just the beginning.
Yeah, and in the end, he says apparently when he says that in that trailer, that's supposed to be him doing his Snake voice, which I had no idea.
Wow.
And people are like, "Oh, he still got it. Listen to that." I'm like, that sounds nothing like Solid Snake. What are you talking about?
He can't do it anymore.
Well, he does. What was that game where it was the bad guy in it? It was earlier this year. It was like weirdly. It was almost like kind of. Super hot looking. You remember what I'm talking about? Like, it was like kind of black and white, like cyberpunky, and he's the bad guy. He sounds a lot like an evil Solid Snake in that, but he's under a lot of post processing. So I don't know maybe he can do it with a little help. But like, that's a hard voice to do. Even playing 1, 2, and 3, he gets worse at the voice every game, and like because it's hard. It's a hard voice. It's hard in your voice,
and there's so many damn lines to read.
Right. Well, and especially as you get to 3, where it's like where Kojima starts trying to have Snake give like actual like emotional performances, and that is not the voice for that.
It's impossible.
One of the weird things about the Metal Gear games as you go back and play them is like Snake's kind of a whiny loser.
Yeah.
Like, why are you so upset about and reacting to things that basically a soldier should already know, or the thing where at the very beginning you're in the middle of Soviet territory, in the middle of a jungle, waist deep in alligators, and you're like, why would you abandon me? Like, what? It's like, no, not that you're on the fucking radio with all these other people.
Yeah.
It's extremely embarrassing, and they've already said this, or the Russians are probably listening in.
Yeah.
And it's just like, everyone in the fucking Eastern Hemisphere knows you're a giant baby now. Good work. Like, it's just, he's not a cool character. He's a dork.
Well, all I can say is they better make a hell of a lot more changes to this game than just the graphics, because they need to update the gameplay and that and everything.
I can't imagine this isn't a full overhaul in that regard.
It better be, but...
Maybe not having to hold a button to sneak up on people when it doesn't tell you that you need to hold a button to sneak up on them. That took me like 3 years to figure out. How come these guys hear me right as I'm behind them? So, oh, you got to hold down the button before you... I'm like, nobody fucking told me that. Doesn't even say that in the fucking manual.
So anyway, pretty big...
Synapse, that's what it was. Thank you, Andy.
That's right.
Thank you, everybody.
Pretty big disappointment for Metal Gear Solid Delta, although my guess is future trailers, people will feel a lot better when they actually see a lot more gameplay, and they're not just showing off the new engine. The second game that they showed is finally the Unreal Engine 5 next-gen version of Ark Survival Evolved, which is called Ark Survival Ascended. It looks pretty damn good. I mean, it is a huge upgrade over the original Ark. But
Where's Ark 2?
Well, the thing is like the original Ark will now eventually be delisted. This will be the only version on the market eventually. So I'm assuming all the stuff that everyone's done in the game leading up to this transfers over into the new game and everything just looks better. Like, I can't imagine that they would, like, I have nephews that have built, like, cities in this game. Like, and they have, like, herds of dinosaurs running through their villages. Like, I don't think there's any way they could wipe all that. Like, I'm guessing all that stuff transfers over into the new game. And, I mean, hot dang, the new game looks gorgeous. There's no denying it. It's a huge upgrade from Survival Evolved. This was delayed a couple of different times, though.
That doesn't look amazing.
No, the animation of that fish. They haven't quite figured out the physics of swimming there yet.
No.
But, I mean, I don't know if you remember what the original arc looked like.
I do.
It is amazing what the upgrade is here. And it also, by the way, launched on the very same day that this presentation happened, so it's out there now.
I feel like I'd still bounce off it in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a survival game player. I just don't enjoy it. They're not my thing, but man, do my nephews love these games.
You want to make a functional single-player RPG out of this thing? I
Yeah,
would totally
then I'm
play
in.
that.
Like, I'm all about the dinosaurs. It's just
Yeah.
the rest of it that I just check out
It's
from.
very hard to get decent dinosaur content these days.
It really is. It really is. Like, I still don't know why Turok doesn't exist. Like, they've made a couple here and there.
Turok's licensing is real mixed up.
Yeah.
because of
It started as a comic
book,
and-
so like whoever
yeah.
holds those licenses, kind of, I don't even know who has that right now.
Yeah, was it... Who originally published the comic?
Well, it used to
Was it Dark Horse?
No, it was Gold Key back in the day.
Was it?
And then Valiant started doing the 90s ones. And then Acclaim bought Valiant. And then Acclaim sold them or
Dissolved.
went under or
Yeah.
something. And then somebody else had them. I don't know who has the rights to the old Valiant stuff now. Because there was a new Valiant. Maybe DC bought them? I can't remember.
There does need to be
There were
more
new Valiant
dinosaur
comics
video
for a
game
while.
content. Well, there was the second Extinction, that co-op shooter that just went under. Mm-hmm. It was pretty good. I played it, and I was pleasantly surprised by it, but they didn't have enough money to finish the game, and so they just basically delisted it. So, yeah, I don't know why. There should be tons of dinosaur games. I never get tired of fighting dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. They're fun. So, we'll see.
Just give me like Horizon, but with real dinosaurs.
Yeah. And then next, this to me was the most pleasant surprise of this whole thing. Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, which at first they had the trailer of the guy naked on the beach. And we're like, oh, that's just a joke. It's not real. No, then we find out, no, it's really set on an island paradise. And then with this, we find out that it's actually like Animal Crossing. You are managing the island resort. And the gameplay loop is very much like Animal Crossing. This series just never fails to surprise me.
Yeah, this series has no fear.
It really is not afraid of like pissing off fans or like going against what people expectations. Like, first of all, you turn Yakuza into like an RPG after it was a hack and slash for all that time. And then you're just like, you know what? The sky's the limit. Now we're just going to make it like a resort management sim. Like, it's really, really crazy. I don't think this game is what people thought it was going to be.
No.
Are you more or less excited for it now?
I don't know. It's hard to
It's
say.
like a lateral move.
I am so far behind on this series. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, this is what, they're going to put out, like, what, 3 or 4 of these in the space of a year?
Yeah.
It's too much.
It is too much.
For a human being to...
Well, then there's like a Dragon Gaiden, which is
Right.
like the old school hack and slash style.
Right. The man who...
Knew too much or whatever.
Erased his name or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
But then, I mean, Ishin just came out in February.
Yeah.
That one's due in January. Like, that's a lot.
It's probably too much.
These are 100-hour games.
I know. Yeah. It's probably too much for a series that is marginally popular. But
If you can include the Judgment series, is even more, which
Yeah.
are kind of tangent. I mean, I think they're the same universe to some degree.
yeah, this is kind of like Animal Crossing for adults, even though adults do play Animal Crossing. But
I mean, real estate has always been a big function.
it has, actually.
I mean,
So maybe it isn't that
this
crazy
is a pretty natural evolution of the series to me.
Oddly
really.
enough, it kind of is. That's funny to think about. But I think this might have caught some people off guard. I don't think a lot of people expected it.
I mean, the thing that catches me the most off guard is it's coming to the West.
Right.
Like, usually this is the kind of installment that would never, ever be translated.
Or it takes like 4 years or whatever to come to the U.S. or to Europe. So
Did you just get hearts for rubbing that man's belly?
I think they did. Yes. Look at this. It's insane.
I mean, that's pretty great.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Matt. I am more excited for this game now.
Yeah.
I am. Than what I thought it was before.
And clearly you're going to have to fight some pirates.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
That's how it goes. Fight
Yeah.
some warthogs.
Yeah, I mean, it still looks like there's turn-based combat in it. Or is it real-time
No,
combat?
that's real time.
Is it?
That's the old combat.
It's really crazy. I like, though, that it's kept me guessing. and I don't know 100% exactly what it is and what I'm going to be doing. That lack of clarity has me excited for the game.
How can you argue with how happy he looks?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm happy watching it. This trailer made me laugh several times.
I don't think you need the coat.
Yeah, or the furry.
Yeah, I don't think you need the overcoat in the tropical island.
I mean, it's literally just Animal Crossing in reality. It's really bizarre. It'll be interesting to see how it does. I think it'll be successful in Japan.
Yeah,
We'll see how it does here.
it'll have its cult hit status. I think.
But again, that is Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. And then they shared a couple indie games we're going to talk about very briefly. The first one is called Spirit of the North 2. You may remember the first Spirit of the North where you played as a fox. And if you played that game, you probably remember how it ended. And it was a very sad ending to the game. I think most people probably guessed that before they played Spirit of the North. And it lived up to expectations in that way. Now there's a sequel. The difference is you're still controlling a fox. However, you also now have a raven sidekick. So my guess is that'll be used in solving various puzzles throughout the game. Because the last game really was like an adventure game. There wasn't a whole lot of action to it. There were sections where you like ran away. But like the platforming was weird. It was kind of like predetermined. And like it was really just an adventure game. An emotional adventure game. This one looks like it maybe will have a little bit more puzzle solving than the last one. But my guess is it has just as a heavy of a gut punch at the end as the last one did. If you haven't played Spirit of the North, I do recommend it. It's pretty short. It only takes a couple hours to get through. But be ready. It does pull on the heartstrings a little bit. And then the second indie game that they showed that I want to discuss is a game called Still Wakes the Deep. This is the new game from the Chinese Room. That's the team behind the Amnesia franchise and Dear Esther. This is a first-person horror adventure set on a haunted oil rig in the middle of the ocean that is slowly collapsing called Biera D. I'm not sure what the goal of the game is, if it's just to escape or if it's to keep the oil rig afloat. I have no idea. But there is a supernatural entity that has taken over the oil rig, and obviously that is the antagonist throughout the game. I don't know how you're supposed to fight him or anything like that. They don't really show anything along those ways in this trailer. But the Chinese Room has made pretty good games in the past, and this is kind of its new crown jewel, and it was one of the other games.
Didn't they just like delay or cancel something? Weren't they working on? Did they get the? Didn't they get the vampire game recently? Weren't they the new developers on that Vampire Bloodlines 2 or something?
Yes, they are. Yep. Yeah, they just picked it up after it was dropped.
Yeah, wonder how that's
and now
going.
they're saying it's not coming out till next year, but they've already been working on that for like a year. Yeah, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, they picked up development on. And I think this is encouraging to see this game, knowing that they're working on that one. Because this game technically seems up to scratch. I think that's probably something people were concerned about with the smaller indie developer working on. I wouldn't call Vampire the Masquerade AAA, but it's generally handled with a bigger budget.
It has a pedigree.
Yeah.
Although I would argue that recently that license does tend to be pretty low budget.
Yeah, it does. But more than most indie games. Still, like the budgets.
People have expectations of a Bloodline sequel just because of the Deus Ex elements.
Yep. Yeah, and in the past, I think people enjoyed those games. This game looks
you
very
either gotta-
claustrophobic.
You either got to meet that or you don't call it Bloodlines.
Yeah, that's totally true. And that was pretty much it for the Xbox partner preview. So you can see why Matt didn't even pick up on the fact that it happened, and I was kind of disappointed, and that was sort of its inaugural blowout to try to get people hooked in to that brand. So I don't see people I don't see people come running whenever they hear there's another Xbox partner preview on the way, like they do when they hear there's a Nintendo Direct on the way. So that's the latest third-party stuff. It's kind of surprising Xbox couldn't come up with stuff better than that, but I don't know. It is what it is. So and keep in mind too that most of these games are coming to other platforms. These aren't third-party exclusives for Xbox. These are just random third-party games that they decided to cobble together for this event. So there you go. That's the first ever Xbox partner preview. Our final topic for today's episode, we're going to discuss a game that has turned into a sensation. And I don't say that lightly. It really has turned into a sensation. It is a game called The Finals. It is a 3 versus 3 versus 3, and in one mode, another versus 3, asymmetrical multiplayer game. And basically the objective of the game is go here, pick something up, take it over here, deposit it, and then defend the deposit point for X amount of time. That's the basic gist of how the game works. There's much more to it than that. This game is supposed to come out in December of 2023. Right now there's a beta going on that I believe lasts until like November 6th, I think. It's still going on for a while. So after we talk about it, if you're interested in it, you can go and download it. It's available for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. So PC and next-gen platforms. As you can see, you start out by customizing your character. There are 3 sort of character archetypes. There's heavy, light, and medium. And those matter because those different archetypes give you access to different loadouts and different weapons and different gadgets that you can't use if you're using one of the other classes. So once you choose heavy, light, or medium archetype, then you start picking your gear and all your weapons that you want to use. And then each one of those archetypes also have their own specializations. They're basically like supers or special abilities. There's a grapple hook, there's a cloaking device, there's a healing beam, there's a turret you can get, there's a goo gun. More on that later, because it is one of kind of the, I don't know, defining features of the finals is the goo gun and the goo in general. The game in general, I believe, could use a lot more customization options. It needs way more haircuts. It needs way more faces and things like that. Obviously, that's stuff that you can add over time. And after that, you choose your loadout for your character. You choose their style, so their clothing and things like that. You choose their emotes and their sprays, and then you're ready to go out into the world and have your first match. Now, this is going to be a free-to-play game as well. This game looks damn good for a free-to-play game, man. It's really crazy, Matt, where free-to-play has gone at this point. Like, you can't tell the difference. Like, looking at a game now, you cannot tell if it's free-to-play or if it's paid for. Free-to-play games look as good as games you pay $60, $70 for at this point. So there's also gadgets that you get. There's defibrillators, typical grenades, like 4 different grenade types. There's jump pads that you can throw down on the ground. This is a little bit like Hyperscape. Ubisoft's Hyperscape. There's a lot of verticality in this.
No need to be mean.
Well, I'll say this. It's way better than Hyperscape. I'll say that right now. But there is a lot of verticality. As you can see, there's these zip lines that you can get on to zip to places.
That's an interesting way to do that.
Yeah. There's also jump pads. Again, there is some that are already in the environments, and then you can also have them in your loadout and put them down wherever you want them if you want to create a path, an easy path to like the capture point or whatever. You can also add your own zip lines if you want to as well. So they're already in the environment, or you can add them where you want to, again, to create an easy path to someplace in the map. One thing I would say, the guns are surprisingly traditional. Like, they're all just real guns. Like, you would think in a game like this, they'd be all laser pistols and all this crazy. No, they're not. They fire typical ammunition. They're typical AK-47s, M16s. Although they're named something different, they all function kind of the same. And the unlocks in this are excruciatingly slow. I played this all weekend on and off. I never unlocked a new weapon. Never. Now, again, if you choose the different archetypes, heavy, light, or medium, it gives you access to different guns. But I never unlocked one playing. The unlocks in this are excruciatingly slow. And again, as a free-to-play game, you can already see the prices for them. And Matt, I'll just be honest with you, even in this weekend, I was like, I would just pay for that. And I guess it's free. Like, I'll be honest with you, Matt, maybe I should be a little more open to giving money to free-to-play games. I have this weird thing where I, try to, play free-to-play games without spending any money to see if I can. Mm-hmm. This one, I think you may need to spend some money if you want to be competitive. Because in this game, like a lot of shooters, the guns that you have or do not have make a big difference. The same deal with the power-ups and the gadgets and having access to that stuff. So yeah, the guns are surprisingly traditional for a sci-fi shooter. And sometimes it does feel like it might just be easier to pay for a new gun than earning it. Also, I should mention, this game is from former Battlefield developers. So a bunch of dudes who were working on Battlefield defected, went and started their own studio, and this is their first game. You can carry 2 weapons at a time. You can carry 6 gadgets at a time. But it also means that, selecting things, you have to open up, a weapon wheel. And I found that to be slow and cumbersome at times. For example, I just want to throw a grenade. Well, you have to, bring up the rotary menu, select it with the analog stick, then the grenades in your hand. Like
Battlefield 1942 style.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that at all. And my guess is that's something that they could change pretty quickly, and if they get feedback about it, maybe they will. But that was one thing I found a little bit cumbersome about the gameplay.
That's funny because that was one of the big innovations of early Call of Duty was just pull the trigger and throw the grenade.
Yep.
Like that was the fact you had your grenade like always handy was like one of the big sudden like oh my god revelations of Metal Gear Solid 2, or not Metal Gear Solid, Call of Duty 2.
Yeah. Well, the big revelation about this game, Matt, is that everything is destructible. Everything. Again, that Battlefield pedigree. Totally their destruction guy is on this team, and it's amazing. So, as I mentioned, the loop is you pick up a box, like there's a box full of credits, or you pick up like these coins, and you take them someplace and you deposit them. Once you deposit them, a timer starts counting down before you actually earn that amount. You have to defend that spot. Well, because the world is destructible, you have to basically stay on your toes in 360 degrees on that Z-axis, because there are things in this game that are made to work with 360 degrees. So, for example, like you'll capture stuff in these machines. They almost look like soda machines. You walk up to them, you hold triangle, it deposits your currency, and you have to defend it. Well, it's a soda machine. So the enemy, don't be surprised if they go to the floor below the soda machine, put a charge on the ceiling, and it blows it up, and then the soda machine falls down like 2 stories down to the ground or whatever. That's what happens in this game. It is full 360 degrees. And it's not just that. It's like sometimes you think you're safe. You're in a corner trying to defend your currency, waiting for it to finish. And you're like, oh, I'm going to keep my gun trained on the door. Doors do not matter in this. They will blast the ceiling right above you and shoot you. You are never safe in this game. It is awesome. And I will fully admit, I sucked at this all weekend. The people who have been playing it for a while, what I ended up doing for the most part was like, I would die and I would watch. Like if I figured out that I had a good player among my 3-person squad, after I died, I would watch them play. And it is amazing what people are doing in this game. So you have the destruction, but you can also build. So I was talking earlier about the goo gun or whatever. So there's goo in this game where there's even like canisters that you can find laying around that you can throw that explode and turn into this wall of goo. And if you get good at it, you can actually build walls around, like as you're trying to capture. You can use it to defend the machine, but then they come in from underneath and they put the charge on the floor and it falls through the floor. You never know what's going to happen in this game. Like, I have not played a shooter like this in I don't know how long. Maybe 10, 12 years, Matt, since I've played a shooter that felt as fresh and innovative as this game. And again, I sucked at it. I didn't care. I was having so much fun playing this and learning the ins and outs of the game. I didn't care about how competitive I was at it at all. And I will say this, I feel like the guns feel like crap in this. I felt like I could not hit the broadside of a barn with the gun in this. But again, all I ever had were the iron sights. I never got a red dot sight. I never got anything like that because the unlocks are so damn slow. So anyway, here you see, this is one of the currency boxes. You have to physically carry it to the drop-off point, insert it into the machine, and then defend it for X amount of time. So now you're seeing it. There's the machine that you insert it into. Now here's where the challenge begins, because the other team gets alerted to it. They get an icon on their map saying, "Hope, they're capturing some points. You better go over there." And they can come and they can take over the machine and take your points from you. Now, it takes a long time because they will also have to... It's right there. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. There it is. Like he distracted me by blowing up the ceiling so I would look up, and then he enters the room and shoots me in the face. That's what this game allows you to do. As you can see, there's fire. Everything's flammable. You can totally get caught in like a group of trees, and the guy comes through with fire and just sets the whole woods on fire, and you burn to death. It's insane. There's a reason why this game exploded over the weekend. They got so popular, they had to start setting up queues to get into the servers. This was also announced, by the way, in that Xbox partner thing, but I didn't want to bring it up, obviously, because we were going to talk about it separately. This beta was. I just had a total blast playing this game, even though I was doing terrible at it. People in the game were great too, like helping me figure out how to play it, learning the ins and outs of it. There's going to be a league structure in the game, so if you get really seriously into it for esports, like all that stuff is there. The structure is there for it. It looks amazing. It plays really fast. I had no problem. Here's the crazy thing, Matt. The whole world can be destroyed. I never saw the game slow down. the whole world can crumble down around you. Like right there, perfect example. See what they did? They blew the floor and dropped the box, the capture box, down onto the ground. It's, again, I don't know if I've ever played a shooter like this, to be honest, Matt. And I've played them all.
I mean, it kind of looks like what they should, with the direction they should have gone after Bad Company 2.
Yeah. There's no plot to this, really. It's just a premise. You're in a game show in the future. There's Smash TV style announcers saying, like, get the coins. You captured the coins. It's like there's a TV show going on while you're...
Most of the talk I've seen about this industry-wise has been the fact that they use AI for the
for the voices. And you can tell it because they say stuff wrong.
Yeah, because they're terrible, and it's terrible, and they can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, seriously. I agree. It's scummy that they did that. And you can see it. You can hear it. They say the wrong things. They speak improper English.
And it's like the statement about it was like, oh, it gives us much more flexibility in terms of having to only wait weeks for this instead of months for a recording session. And I'm like, dude, just say you did it because it's cheaper. Like, no one fucking believes that shit. Just tell the truth. Like, just say you did it to save money. You're a small developer. You're making a really ambitious game. We wanted to save some money. We didn't want to spend 6 figures on fucking voice actors, so we did this and cut them out of the picture, and we're costing some people some jobs, but in the end, you get the game where you might not have gotten the game otherwise.
It's free to play.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's like the thing where it's like Kojima said that the Quiet doesn't wear clothes because... of very important thematic reasons, and then the Dragon's Crown guys is like, no, I like looking at boobs and asses. And it's like, it was like, cool.
Hey, just be honest.
Just be honest. Just tell us the truth. Like,
look, I will forgive a lot of people who are honest. To be sure. Yeah.
Like their statement today made things worse because they're making up all this stupid excuses, and it's just like, it was cheaper. It's cheaper. Just say it.
Yeah. So the guns in this, I never found one that I really like to use. The pistols were okay. The assault rifle I used, I felt like
it looks like old Battlefield gunplay to me.
I couldn't hit the broadside of a barn in this game. Hopefully they tweak it a little bit.
There are elements of this that I'm just like, oh, some of this feels like a natural evolution of like what Bad Company 2 did, but some of it looks like going back to Bad Company 2 days.
The other thing, too, is the defend time is way too long, man. It's like you pick up one of those cubes or you have a bunch of coins and you take it to the capture place. It's literally like 4 minutes. You have to sit there and defend the capture before you can get the points. Like, it's way too long. They totally need to tweak it. I love the mode, and I think the idea is great. It's just, I want to score more. Like, let's score it. Let's move to a different part of the map and rinse and repeat. Like, what happens is you end up spending almost the whole match time on one capture because it goes back and forth. Oh, they wiped all of us. Now they're trying to capture it. Now me and my team show up and we wipe them out. And now we're trying. And it just turns into this endless loop of nothing happening. So that's very simple things that they can tweak with no problem. And I'm hoping that they do for the final release. Again, it's supposed to come out before the end of the year. We'll see if that actually happens. You basically have endless respawns. However, when you die, you have to sit and wait. And it worked out good for me because that taught me how to play the game, watching my teammates play while I waited for my respawn timer to click down. But if you're one of those people who wants to, like, if you're a big Call of Duty player, you like being able to jump right back in as soon as you die. That is not a part of this game. Again, it's a little bit more like Battlefield. Shocker, I know, considering the people who made this are also Battlefield developers. But otherwise, like, this game is freaking great, man. Like, the foam stuff, there's not a lot of it in the B-roll, unfortunately, and that's my mistake. I should have made sure it was in here. Watching somebody who's really good with the foam gun or with the canister, you can pick up anything in this game and throw it as well, by the way. So you can throw a canister at someone and kill them with it. There's explosive canisters that you can throw and it will explode. But the goo stuff is really the game changer in this. Like, because people can set up like defensive walls around the capture points. They can go above and below the floors and make it difficult for them to go above or below and put the charges on the floor or on the ceiling. There's just so much strategy to this. And again, I think with a couple very simple tweaks, it could be very, very good. There's a reason why this has become so popular very quickly, because you play it and very quickly realize how different it is from anything else on the market. And it's free. It's going to be free to play. So I'm a big fan of the finals. Like, having already played through the Modern Warfare 3 beta. By the way, I think I get review code for that tomorrow. But having already played through the Modern Warfare 3 beta, which is a paid game, I found this way more fun and way more different and way more unique. It made me think in ways Call of Duty has never made me think. So I think the finals looks awesome. If you were wondering why everyone's talking about it and why it's this big thing on social media, it deserves it. It is that good. So Again, it's supposed to come out before the end of the year. It is coming to PC and next gen. And again, this beta is live, and I just found it here in my notes until November 5th. So you have until the 5th to download it and give it a go. I think if you do, you'll find yourself addicted to it just like I was. And I'll tell you what, playing this didn't make it any easier to go back and play Alan Wake 2, Matt. Because this is just like nonstop insanity at all times. The whole world's crumbling around you. It's on fire. There's goo and like it's crazy. So I had a blast playing the finals. I think most people, if you enjoy shooters, I think you will too. You should definitely give it a go. Again, there's an open beta right now that you can play on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, or PC. Any questions about the finals, Matt?
No.
I think you might actually enjoy the finals.
Somewhat. I'm going to wait and see how they settle out with this voice actor thing.
I understand that.
Because that is garbage.
Keep in mind, I played this before that broke. Mm-hmm. But I will say this, I noticed it.
Oh, it's very obvious when you hear it. You're just like, oh, yeah, those aren't...
Yeah. I was like, they used AI. And then on Monday or whatever, like it came out that, in fact, they had used AI. So I hear you. So
yeah, there's a bunch of clearly a bunch of written jokes in there, and the AI doesn't understand how to inflect them, and so it's like listening to aliens commentate.
Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah, the announcers I do not think are AI. I think like the announcer in the game is like that announces when you score or whatever. I think those are real humans.
No, they're all AI.
They are all AI.
All the voice acting is AI, and all the effort stuff, the grunts, and those are the in-house developers.
Interesting.
But there are no real voice actors.
The announcer, I never picked up on it.
Because the announcer is a little more bombastic and out there, but like the commentators are trying to have a conversation, and it's not working.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So anyway, there you go. That's the finals. I really enjoyed it. And again, you guys can all go out and play it if you want to.
Yeah, I will also say Silk Snake is correct. That name sucks.
The finals?
The finals sucks.
The thing, too...
terrible name.
Well, the thing, too, is that the final, if you notice, it's plastered all over the maps. Yeah. Everywhere. The finals. It's everywhere.
Finals of what?
This is called the game. That's the game show. That's what the game show is called.
But like it doesn't tell you anything.
Well,
like,
they announced like you want to make it to the finals.
Right, but
blah,
it's
blah,
just
blah.
the most generic thing. Like I would never look at this game twice off that name. It's a terrible name.
Yep. Talimper, thank you for Twitch Prime. I just want to see if there's any questions in here about it. AJ the Legend asks, so is this a test bed for those former Battlefield devs to establish a totally new IP with story and such to compete with Call of Duty, or a big middle finger to EA? I don't think the objective here is to, like, this is their first game, and then eventually they're going to create this cinematic, like, Call of Duty type campaign. I'm
sure they'd love to get there, but I think, one thing at a time.
I think they just want to make a ton of money off a free-to-play game, like, honestly. Like a lot of developers.
And if that's successful, I'm sure they consider doing like a more advanced thing like that, but hopefully they'd hire real people to voice it.
Talimper points out 100K players on Steam for it right now. In the middle of the day, there's 100,000 people playing it on Steam right now. There's a reason. It's good. I really had a lot of fun with it.
And it ain't Frostbite.
No, it's not. Okay. I don't think we're going to have any time, unfortunately, for Q&A. And we don't have any time for Name That Game either. We just had too many games in this week's episode, which I think is totally fine. I wish we could do more episodes like this. So let's check in with you guys here. JM Rain, what's up, man? Thank you for gifting the Tier 1 subs. I think we already hit the hype train. No, we're on level 3. Or did we already hit all the way and it's come back around to level 3?
I don't remember.
I don't either. I think I missed it. Clay UK Garage 1988. Shane, I love your Run DMC outfit. Thank you, man. I have to admit, at this point, I'm pretty damn hot. It's like polyester, and I'm wearing a hat. But anyway, I have had this outfit since I went to my first rave. I bought this outfit to go to my first rave back in the 90s. And I've only worn it maybe 10 times in my whole life, because it's not just something that you just wear every day. But JM Rain, thank you, man, for all those Tier 1 subs to our community. Again, show up at twitch.tv/SIFTD and you'll get free subs from our fans. That's just the way it is. Ammo Clip 20, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. That's awesome. A chav. I don't know what a chav is. What is that?
It's it's kind of a low-class sort of thug, white trash sort of equivalent in Britain.
No, interesting. I wonder if they call ravers chavs in...
Chavs.
Chav? I've never heard that word before. Interesting. Let's see. Oh, Vincent says it was at like level 7 at the beginning, and this is a new run of the hype train. Amazing. And for that, I'm going to give y'all a round of applause.
Snake is whiny in MGS3 because of his first official mission. He said he'd been a Green Beret for Green Berets shouldn't be whining in the field. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Before we get out of here, though, we have something very important to do. Although I would argue that our coverage of Alan Wake 2 was probably the best ad we could have given SoundWizardry.com because they worked on it and we said the audio was incredible. Still, let's just remind you of the awesome resume of SoundWizardry.com.
Experience the realm of extraordinary audio with Sound Wizardry. With a decade-long journey in sound design, we animate your movies and video games with the breath of sound. Our wide-ranging services include sound design, Foley, sound mixing and mastering, audio implementation, dialogue mastering, and the crafting of unique sound effects from freshly recorded material. Our portfolio contains Baldur's Gate 3, Steven Universe, Alan Wake 2, Gwent, Cyberpunk 2077, and more. Visit soundwizardry.com and let us transmute your vision into an auditory marvel.
So I should just mention before we go that SoundWizardry.com has now worked on the audio on 2 Game of the Year contenders, Baldur's Gate 3 and now Alan Wake 2.
You think Alan Wake 2 is going to end up in the Game of the Year nominees?
It's a 9.2 or whatever Metacritic. It has to be, right? Otherwise,
No,
you're not
it
standing
doesn't.
beside your scores, right?
No, it doesn't at all.
Well, not for us. I mean, I don't think it's going to be in our discussion, but if you gave that game a 9.3...
Unless they're expanding their nominees list to like 10, I don't think Alan Wake will make it into most of those.
I mean, let's be honest. It has been an amazing year of game releases.
It has, but also... I think some people in editorial will be a little more realistic than the people who gave it the scores in the first place.
That's possible. Yep.
I do not believe for 1 second that everybody on that editorial team and whoever gave it a 9.4 or whatever agrees with that.
Yeah. Well, before we go...
And it's going to be between Zelda and Baldur's Gate anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I mean it like the most of the outlet, not for me.
Yeah. Well... That brings us to a close for GameFace episode 364 on this awesome Halloween. It was great to dress up for you guys. Great to celebrate Halloween with you guys. Just a reminder for people who are watching the show on YouTube or who are listening to it on any of the podcast services, and it's on all of them. If you'd like to support us, please head to patreon.com/SIFTD. That's SIFTD. You can pledge whatever you want per month, but $4 per month gets you all our content early. You get GameFace 4 days early. You get Pack Your Factor a week early. You get all the rest of our content at least 3 days early. We'd really appreciate it. And if you can't afford to help us with real money, if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you can help us out with Twitch Prime. You can give us a free $2.50 every month. Once you've connected your accounts, it literally takes 3 seconds every month to give us that free $2.50, and we'd really appreciate it. And if you can't do that, just review the show on whatever podcast service you're listening to, or if you're watching this on YouTube, like the show, make sure you subscribe, do all that YouTube stuff that we never ask anybody to do, and maybe we should. All that stuff helps in the end. The reviews on the podcast services are a big help because that's how search works for the podcast. So if somebody searches for video games and we have a bunch of reviews, we'll pop up and people will give us a listen. And I'm pretty confident if they listen to our show, they're going to keep listening to it. So that's it for GameFace 364. I'm trying to figure out what my embargo is going to be for Modern Warfare 3, but I think we'll be able to talk about it in next week's show, I believe. There's a couple big games coming out here over the next couple days, too. So next week's show is going to be another really good one. It's going to probably be that way until the 3rd week in November, and that's when things start to slow down a little bit, and then we'll start talking about our Game of the Year stuff and all that other fun jazz. So, yeah. Another great episode. Happy Halloween to everybody. I'll give you guys one last sound effect from Halloween. Everybody, have yourselves a great week. GameFace is up and out.